Thursday. We got Todd Father. We got Pierzynski. Braun here, still separated from the group in quarantine. Back with the fam soon. Oh, today our model of the day, Todd Father, is actually AJ Pierzynski. I didn't even realize what he's got. What is that on your body?
I mean, it's a sweatshirt, but you can't really see it, but it's a
Nice.
Tar.
Yeah, I like it. We've been getting some tags on socials from people that have hit up foulterritoryshop.com for sweatshirts. So hoodie season is here. Nice. Beautifully done.
hoodie season
Also
hopefully is over in Florida.
I agree. It's been a little better here. You know, we're in the 60s today, I think, right?
It's still chilly.
Yeah. We're
We got
suffering down here.
47 days till spring, so we got time.
Hey, we have about 2 weeks until pitchers and catchers report. Happy Feb 1.
Ooh, baby.
Less than
We're
that
gonna
for
have
the
spring
Dodgers,
training
right?
games
When did the
this week.
Dodgers show up? Dodgers and Padres.
It's only a few days earlier, I think, right?
They start like 3 weeks early, don't they? Because they fly to Korea and play those games.
They do. We're going to have coverage of those games. I don't think we're going, but we're going to talk about them. Maybe a little post-game show action. We'll see if people are into it. And by the way, just a reminder, because we've been getting quite a few questions on our Instagram. Sometimes people are like, hey, ask Scott this. I'm like, yo, it's me. I'm in the Instagram DMs talking back. So not having 20-minute conversations with everyone, but if you do have a question, that's the spot. There's other spots too, but the Foul Territory Instagram DMs are pretty easy for us to check. So we'll mix in a couple questions here today too. Let's start by charging the mound on a John Heyman story on Pete Alonso, and really it's about the New York Mets. And he just kind of makes the case for the Mets adding another bat, okay? So there's the Twitter headline, Mets have logically and smartly improved depth and kept flexibility this winter. But here's my long shot plea for a late signing to aid Alonso and excite fans. And you can see the two headline photos with Alonso sandwiched in between. It's JD Martinez and it's Jorge Soler. He also mentions how there hasn't even been a hitter signing for over $50 million besides unicorn Shohei Ohtani. And of course, that should change with Bellinger and with Chapman. But part of the plea, Todd Father, is, hey, this could be the final season with him. Obviously, I think a lot of people want him to stay, including many within the Mets organization, but it would help to put him paired with a legit 40-plus homer threat in that lineup, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I talked about this yesterday a little bit. I think Soler would be the best fit. And I don't think you're going to have to break the bank to get a guy like this. He's been known for power. You can DH him. You can give somebody a break in the outfield if you need him. He's a guy that's going to come up there and help Pete Alonso out. And then my second thing would be sign Pete Alonso long term. I mean, I don't know what they're waiting for. This guy needs to be in Queens for the rest of his career, if not, the rest of his career. I mean, I don't see, he's fit for New York. He's fit for Queens. He's that guy across the street from Aaron Judge, another power hitter. When they play each other, it's like two big warriors going at it. So it makes for fun times in the Boogie Downer in Queens when they play. So Soler first, then sign Pete long term.
Why Soler? Why Soler, not JD Martinez? JD Martinez has a pretty good track record of being pretty good over a long period of time. Listen, Jorge Soler is a great player. He'll hit you 40 probably, but he'll also strike out a ton. JD's a little bit of a better hitter. Either one of these guys makes sense. They just need another bat, period, in this lineup and someone to protect Pete. And yes, I agree with Todd. Sign a DH, but you have to sign Pete Alonso. You've already locked up Lindor. Alonso loves the orange and blue. He needs to be a Met for life. You need to sign him up. Steve Cohen, you got the dollars. Let's go. Sign him up. And then when you're done with him, you can probably sign Alvarez up, the catcher, up for a little bit cheaper than what you're going to get Pete Alonso at. But they got some things they need to do. I like what the Mets have done. They haven't committed as much money as they have in the past to guys, but they're still short if they're going to think about winning the NL East.
AJ, let me ask you this. Do you think they give Alvarez one more year to see if he can be that catcher that they've always wanted, or you say sign him now? Like you're like gung-ho about signing him now.
I think you should sign him now. Catchers don't come along that often, and he proved it last year. I mean, he had a great year for him last year. Not only offensively, but the guys love throwing to him defensively. They loved him back there. So, and he played a lot. So I think he's a guy that you could lock up. I mean, I think he's young enough. He's valuable enough. His bat plays. He hits home runs. I mean, even if you sign him, I don't know. I'm going to throw random numbers out. A $50 million deal. I mean, that's not going to kill your franchise, right? No. For the next 6 years, $50 million. It's not killing your franchise. So I think it's a no-brainer, but they haven't done it yet, and I don't know why.
Do they want to see more behind the plate from him? Because my counter to that would be the bat's going to play regardless, and you do have the DH spot.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was just curious his thoughts. I wasn't trying to be like, yo, we shouldn't sign him. I just wanted to hear what he had to say about that, because I've never thought about that yet, and it could be an interesting play as well for the Mets for sure.
I mean, he's a good player. His defensive ranks were good last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they love throwing to him. It wasn't like he was. I mean, he only hit 209, but he did hit 25 homers last year. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah, that wasn't a full season of ABs.
It wasn't a full season. Yeah, I was going to say that.
Well, I mean, 400. He played 123 games. It's interesting though. He hit 25 homers. His OPS plus was 95. Why? Because he doesn't walk a lot, right? Walks are overrated. But defensively, I mean.
Yeah, he's getting better. He's young. He's a young prospect.
Caught stealing, 13%, not awful. Defensive runs saved, 7. I don't know. I mean, he's, I don't know. Some of these metrics for catchers don't make a lot of sense to me, but I don't know enough about how they quantify him, like the framing stuff and all that. But listen, I think he's a guy that's going to get better. He cares. I know that. And every pitcher you hear talk about the Mets, man, I love throwing to Francisco Alvarez. Let's get him back there more. And he played 120 plus games last year. So he's durable. I mean, let's sign him up. I mean, again, if you sign him to a 6-year, $50 million, that's not killing the Mets franchise. And it might be a little more, but it's a guy you can slot in every day behind the plate for 100 plus games.
I didn't know he played that many games. That's why that was the reason why 120. I didn't think he played that many games, but he did. That's good for him, man. Yeah, he's a good little ball player, dude. He's a very good ball player.
If the Mets do end up somehow coming out of the blue and signing Soler or JD, could they sneak into the playoffs?
I think so. I think I think they need what I think is pitching. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that they're going to have to stay with. I mean, besides, you think Kodai Senga, Severino, Sean Manaea, I mean, yeah, they're okay, but, over a long haul, they might need another arm or two for sure.
They're short pitching for me.
Yeah.
They need another starter for sure. I mean, Senga is good. I mean, after that, it's...
You don't know what you're going to get.
I mean, Severino, if he's, 2019, Luis Severino?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a big ask, right?
He's the key to their season, right, AJ? I mean, if he ends up... I mean, his scale is so vast, right? He could be a 2 and have a career year because he's still young enough. He's like 29. Or he could be like last year and those numbers don't belong in a rotation.
Okay, so let me ask you. We're talking about the Mets getting in the postseason, okay? They're in a division with the Phillies and the Braves. They're not better than either one of those teams, right?
Not even
close. The Dodgers are not better, right? And then there's one team from the Central that's getting in. So there's 4 spots already taken. That means there's 2 left, okay?
Yep.
Probably another West team, whether it's Diamondbacks, Padres, whoever you want to look at. Giants, maybe.
Diamondbacks, I think, for sure.
Okay, so there's 5. That means that leaves you 1 spot. The Marlins got in last year.
They're not getting back.
Okay. Brewers, Cardinals, Reds. Brewers, Reds, Cardinals, Cubs in the Central.
Yeah.
One of those teams sneak in.
It's going to be tough.
It's listen, could the Mets, if everything goes perfectly, no one gets hurt and this and that, I mean, like I always say, if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. But
damn.
Not true. Do you always say that?
I say my wife gets mad at me, but that's fine.
Just so happens we have her on the show. Come on down.
Well, all right. I like that, though. I think if the Mets go for another bat like that, their offense could be good. I mean, there's Pete, another year of Alvarez, Lindor, solid as can be. You start going around the diamond. I mean, Nemo's an above-average offensive player. Does Marte give them anything this year? Does Bader bounce back a little bit on offense? I mean, you start going around the diamond. Some of the young guys, obviously, like a Vientos, Beatty, can they be above average bats?
Well, they're going to be battling for third base this year, both of those guys. So we don't know who's going to be third baseman. I know those. You might have an inside track, Mr. Scotty.
I do.
But yeah,
Beatty.
And also, do they have any young studs that can come up and come in and be major league pitchers too as well? That's something else that we haven't talked about. I don't know. I don't know personally. I didn't dive into the minor league ranks there, but I'm hoping they do. I'm hoping they have some kid that's, a month or two away from getting up there and be like, all right, here we go, young man. Here's a ball. Go get him. So they have hopefully they have options, but if not, you sign a guy like Soler or Martinez, you might as well go for the whole kit and caboodle. Go ahead and get a pitcher too as well after that.
Diaz back too. That's big.
Oof.
That gets you a few extra wins.
Yes,
Seriously.
True, and they brought Ottavino back. He's a good eighth inning guy. I mean, there's pieces there, but again, who's going to play third base? There's can McNeil bounce back? He didn't have a great year last year. Marte, he's kind of like, what's he got left? Right?
And you got that Luis Angel Acuna.
Luis Angel Acuna, Ronald's brother, he's fast as shit.
And he's supposed to be a stud too. So
yeah.
What happens if he's clicking at the heels of everybody else? Are they going to move him to third? Because is he going to go to second, put McNeil in the outfield? So we'll see what happens. It's interesting. I would say it's very interesting what, New York has right now, meaning the Mets. Offseason's not over, so we'll see what they have up their sleeve.
It's a team I'm probably going to put money down on. I got to see. I haven't checked lately, but for their win total, because they're going to win more games in my mind than last year. And on paper, you would be like, huh? But I do think they're going to win more games. They have better young talent. Just like you mentioned, those two trades alone, the Rangers trade with Scherzer, the Astros trade with Verlander, those trades will impact the team this year. And the reason why I actually, to sum this up, don't think they're going to sign either of those players is because I do think they're going to give Vientos a shot to get some serious time. And that would be at the DH spot for the most part.
Who's the guy who got hurt in winter ball? Mauricio?
Yeah.
Ronnie. I was gonna bring him up too. That was the guy that they were looking at big time too.
There's some good young talent there. It's mostly position players, so they do need pitching. But next offseason, they're going to buy like 2 or 3 starters.
What about a Cody Bellinger in center field every day?
Well, they got Nimmo and Bader, I guess, now to wherever they want to put them. But I know what you're saying, 100%.
I would
take him in a heartbeat.
I do actually agree with AJ that if they're going to spend any more money this offseason, I would get another starter. I mean, there's not that many big names left, but why not a Ryu? He's still available on the market. Someone like that to kind of give you a little bit more depth and security there. And I do think if they do that, they have a shot. They have a shot at maybe the 5th or 6th spot, like one of those last couple wild card positions. Okay, one other thing I want to get to from our friend Rob Friedman of Pitching Ninja. He put out there the javelin that Yamamoto uses for his training. And hey, I'm not going to knock his training. This dude is one of the best pitchers ever in the history of the MPB, and now he's coming over to the Dodgers. So Pitching Ninja tweeted this, quote, "The company that makes Yamamoto's training javelin asked me if pitchers and coaches would be interested in it in the U.S. If there's any interest, let me know in the replies." Of course, a ton of replies. And we get a good look at the javelins that he uses. He is all about this training regimen. It is so unique, and he chucks those things. And apparently, Todd Father, the story is he saw a young girl in a park throwing javelins once and asked her about it and learned more about how that can increase strength and flexibility and the uniqueness and maybe how it ties into baseball training. And there you go on the poll. Obviously, there's 60% interested in buying the javelin. It's the most we can get America to agree on nowadays. So anyway, Todd Father, do you think that young kids that want to be future Yamamoto-like pitchers in Major League Baseball and get $325 million contracts should be chucking these javelins around? Should we be getting these guys locked in as a sponsor?
Well, let me say this first. Those 2,166 votes are all travel ball coaches that have, or the 60% are all travel ball coaches that say, yes, they're going to get it for their kids. I don't think they need that. First off, I think they would probably throw it wrong and end up hurting themselves rather than helping themselves. I do like the part where you say about flexibility and strength. Great, but you got to be strong enough to do it. I think there might be a certain age, probably when you get, in high school, where you're a little more mature, that you could try something like this because it puts you in a different angle. Your shoulder, it's using your shoulder, your arms, your elbows, it looks like. But if you're not throwing it right, you could probably hurt yourself if you want the truth. But I would say no to that right now. I don't think any kid should be using anything like that. I don't think any coach should buy something for their kid or their dad yet. I think if this works out well and it's something that all of a sudden, this guy's taking off, he's got another mile or two on his fastball and he's strong and healthy, yeah, something to look into. But right now, I would say no.
Yeah, this has got every parent that thinks their kid's going to be a major leaguer because they throw the javelin written all over it. People will buy it. Listen, if you put this on the market, there'll be a lot of people that buy it because they're like, my kid's going to be the next Yamamoto and get 300 plus million. Yeah, I agree with Todd. Just throw more. I think kids don't throw enough, especially long toss. Once they get to the high school age, they need to throw long toss more and just do other things. Once you figure a routine out, then you start worrying about specifics. And I think listen, it works for him, but I've seen a million different things work for guys that don't work for other guys. So listen, it's all personal preference, but I guarantee if these hit the market, they will sell, and they will sell like hotcakes because people are like, oh my gosh, my kid can be the next Nobu Yamamoto because he throws a javelin. It doesn't work like that. And also 82.5 is the over under, Scott, on the Mets.
Ooh. That's really well placed.
Hey, Derek writes in the chat, if Yamamoto wins the Cy Young, every kid in the country will be throwing a javelin. I think that
for
percentage
sure
will go up. That's a good point, Derek, from
What's the
from
downside?
River. Thank you.
What's the downside, guys? I mean, it doesn't have to be your bread and butter for your training, but to mix that in there, if there's somebody that's coming over that's done it well, and he's not a big dude and he's been very durable. I mean, he threw 130 pitches in his last game ever in NPB in that World Series, something like that.
Yeah, I think who's going to train the kid, because they're not going to, hey kid, I just start throwing the javelin, dude. I know a guy that trained me. He missed out on making the Olympics, and he was a javelin thrower. Like, I would be lucky to have that guy to teach me how to throw it, but he might even look at something like this and frown upon it. But he's like, why is it so loose? Why isn't it strong enough to be a javelin? This is a waste of time. So it's like, who's going to teach you how to do it? You can't just get up there and throw it. You know how hard it is to throw a javelin, right? I've tried it before. It's very hard to do. So it's like, if you're not in the right spot, you get your shoulder, all of a sudden you're tweaking from the wrong angle. You're going to have shoulder problems, dude. So it's for young kids. And if you don't have the right trainer to teach you how to do it step by step, you can't just go out there and throw it, dude.
I did not expect to hear that ever on our show. Do you know how hard it is to throw a javelin?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Listen, I agree with everything Todd just said. I mean, listen, if we're gonna put this out there, it better come with not only an instruction booklet, but a video and all kinds of stuff, because there's going to be kids out there just throwing this thing all wrong, hurting their arms. And that's what happens though. I mean, again, weighted balls, right? People, when weighted balls first came out, you'd see people doing it, all kinds of crazy stuff, and people ended up getting hurt from it. So you got to do it right. You got to do it under supervision that know what they're doing. And I don't know that many javelin coaches out there that know how to throw the javelin properly. Todd, you know one? That's one more than anyone else knows. I promise you.
Oh man, crazy! This world's crazy sometimes, man. It makes me laugh. I just laugh it off.
Well, everyone's looking for the next edge, if possible, or just some new training regimen. And here's some video of Yamamoto, and he is nasty. I mean, he's got 2 plane break on the fastball. He's got a 6 splitter. I've been listening to Cyrus on some of his starting pitching rankings, and he was comparing him to Kevin Gausman, but he's got a 4-pitch mix instead of a 2-pitch mix. So he's got the fastball splitter combo that's similar in his mind to Gausman, although it's coming from a lower arm angle because he's smaller than him. And then he's got 2 more pitches on top of that. And really, at least I think 3 of them are ranked elite plus pitches, which is why he is the richest pitcher in Major League Baseball right now.
I want to ask AJ another question, dude. From Japan, like, they are so good at the split change or splitter. How don't we develop that in our pitchers? Like, I'm a pitching coach, in pitchers in the United States. Like, why aren't we trying to throw that pitch? Because it's a devastating pitch. I remember facing it in the Olympics, bro. That thing shoot, and it just fell right off the table. Like, it's nasty pitch, bro. I don't know why. I mean, do we just not? We're like, don't worry about it. I mean, Roger Clemens had a really good one. I don't know.
Well, because everyone's scared they're going to hurt their arms, right? You hear it all the time. Oh, if you throw a split, you're going to hurt your arms. Yeah. Roger Craig, remember him with the Giants? He taught a bunch of those Giants guys back in the day to throw splits. And then you look at, Mr. Baseball, he went over there. He couldn't hit the shoot, though, which was the split. Remember Tom Selleck? He struggled until he figured it out. But the thing is, we don't teach it properly. So, like, guys hold it differently, right? So this is kind of a lesser split. And then some guys get it, like, way deep in their fingers, like all the way split, right? Where you're almost half and half on the ball. You can see that. And then I remember Jose Contreras would take a softball and stick a softball between his fingers, and he would actually try to grab seams see how I like grab a seam with my middle finger here, and that would make it move different ways. So it's just something that needs to be taught. And the other thing is you really got to stay on top, like with your hand, and just pull it straight down. I think guys are so taught now to get around balls, and if you start throwing it at a young age, man, it can mess you up if you don't doing it properly. It's like anything though. If you're not doing it right, you're not going to be effective, and it's going to end up being bad in the long run. But I think if you know what you're doing and you can throw, look at Kevin Gausman. He's basically a 2-pitch guy, right? Fastball split, and he's effective. Clemens had the split forever. I mean, Dave Stewart, there's a long list of guys with nasty splits. And listen, it was one of the hardest pitches to hit. Tim Hudson, right? Remember him? I mean, he would just go split, split, split. And you're like, gosh, when's he going to throw one that's straight? You just can't see it. It looks the same coming out, but it's a devastating pitch if you can master it.
Hey, and Scott, I'll tell you this: when we were playing in Japan, they would ever be in between every pitch. They had this rosin bag, so it wasn't the same rosin as we had, because when we used the rosin that we used, it wasn't as dusty and cloudy. So they would hit the rosin in between every pitch and throw it, and every time they threw it, a cloud of smoke would pop out of their hands, and you couldn't see the ball. So everything looked like a fastball, and then yank it would fall down. Like we were complaining about it, and the umpire, wherever he was from, didn't speak English, so it was hard. But they would powder up that hand. I'm like, hey man, tell him to wipe it off, and the guy's like, I don't know what you're saying, but they would throw it, poof, cloud of dust would pop up and would make that splitter even more effective. Nothing you can do.
So, really, from this conversation, I think we've learned. Javelin okay, but how about watching Yamamoto this year and others that throw the splitter well and just learning that pitch, right?
Or wait until you get older though. Don't start throwing this at like 12 years old.
See, this hurts my hand. This is like killing my 2 fingers here.
When can you start a splitter in your
arsenal? I would wait till you're later in high school to start throwing that. I mean, work on a fastball command, work on a changeup, work on trying to throw a smaller breaking ball that's easier on your arm. You don't need to be cranking them, right, until you get to be a junior or senior, at least in high school. I mean, and you can play with the split a little bit here and there. But listen, until you get into college or a little bit, 18 years old and you're kind of almost fully developed, like let everything finish. Like, we're not in a rush here. Everyone's in a rush. Like, oh, my kid's 9 years old, man. He's got a wicked breaking ball. He also like drops way down here, right? And he's like cranking his elbow. And then they're like, oh, my kid had Tommy John at 11. I don't know why. Well, I mean, I'll tell you why, because you're cranking breaking balls at nine years old. Like, learn how to command the fastball, learn how to throw a changeup, and then we can work from there. But I mean, everyone's in such a rush now to make their kid, oh, he's a big leaguer at 10 years old. Calm down.
All my kid wants to do is throw a curveball, and he's 9 years old, and I want to rip his head off his shoulders sometimes. And he's like, Dad, I'm like, fastball. It's amazing thing. He doesn't know how to throw it. It's basically like 40 miles an hour, but he's not even throwing it right. So I'm like, dude, you don't even know how to throw it yet. I don't even know how to teach you to throw a curveball. So don't even try it. If you get hit around in your fastball, tip your cap and move on, bro. It's 9-year-old baseball, I tell him. And he doesn't get it yet. But there's a lot of kids around here, especially too. I mean, all over that are throwing curveballs at a young age. It's develop that changeup first. That's as devastating as a curveball is.
Curveballs look cool though. That's the thing.
Yeah, they're cool.
They're video game-ish. They look cool on social media, right? If you got a guy swinging out of his shoes on a curveball, it looks cool. Don't you think that contributes to why people kids want to have it in their arsenal at a young age?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
That's the other pitch for Yamamoto, by the way. That's the other pitch, by the way. So, I mean, he's got a devastating curveball on top of the fastball splitter combo or combinations.
My kid was like 12 years old. My son, we went to Cooperstown to play in the Hall of Fame game, and Kevin Gross was there. And he was like trying to teach my kid how to throw a curveball. My kid was like, oh, this is so cool, Dad. Watch me throw this curveball. And I'm like, let's just wait a couple of years, like Todd said. I'm like, let's calm down a little bit here, because you're a little bit young to be throwing this curveball. But I mean, he taught him properly how to throw it, and he was like, this is how we do it. And and it was the right thing to do. But I was like, let's slow our roll down a little bit here. You're only 12.
Keep that in the arsenal when you get older. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now he doesn't even pitch, so it's perfect.
So he could have done whatever he wanted to do, Last part of this. So one other unique aspect to Yamamoto, because this was kicked off by the javelin conversation, is he doesn't believe in lifting weights. So this is essentially his weight training.
I love that. I
You
absolutely
do?
love it. I know, because I don't
Pitchers
like
not be lifting?
I don't like lifting weights either. That's why I can't stand working out, but I never liked it. But I mean, it's interesting. He wants to keep it nice and loose up here, I guess. I don't know. I mean, how about some band work? I feel like if they do some band work to keep the shoulder right, I mean, is band work lifting weights? Because I'm sure he might be
No.
doing that. No, right?
No,
He's
I think
talking
he's
about
talking about
heavy lifting and stuff.
yeah, the good
Yeah,
stuff, the old school rack 'em.
everybody has their own techniques and work ethics. I'll never knock somebody for that. You know, I mean, guys, I remember a pitcher who used to eat McDonald's before every time he pitched. The one time Dusty Baker told him, man, you can't be eating that crap. He went out, pitched, didn't eat McDonald's. He got shelled. Dusty told him, hey, listen, go get your McDonald's before the game. So it was, you do what you want. You do what you want. And if it works for you, it works for you.
It shocked the system. That was the problem. You shocked the system by taking the McDonald's away. That was his fuel. His body was like, what is this real stuff? What is this?
Todd, listen, I came up with the Twins, and they were like anti-weights. There was no lifting weights.
Really?
We didn't even have a strength coach until a couple years in. Like,
You didn't have any jack dudes on your team?
I mean, we had like Marty Cordova. He was pretty jacked.
Oh,
did he not lift weights?
No, he did, but they just didn't want guys to do it because this was the old school thinking. Like, you get too tight, you can't throw, you can't move. Whereas now we've obviously figured out more kinesiology, movement patterns, and stuff like that for different movements, and the training has gotten so much better, and the equipment has gotten so much better that now it's all about core movement and replicating moves and all that. But yeah, I mean, when I came up with the Twins, they were like, weights? You don't touch a weight.
Dude, and then on the opposite side, I saw a guy after a 3-hour and 40-minute game get in there, do 90 to 100-pound Turkish get-ups. I'm like, holy cow, like, this is crazy. Doing cleans. I'm like, this ain't me. I'm over there with 20-pound dumbbells doing bicep curls, baby, and triceps and all this stuff. I'm like, am I doing this wrong? It's freaking nuts.
People want to know who the McDonald's guy is. Who's the McDonald's?
Honestly, I would tell you, but I forget. I'm picturing him.
Frankie said, "Is it Homer Bailey?"
No, it wasn't Homer Bailey.
Is it a starter? It was a red starter.
He was a starter for only a year and a half.
Only a year and a half. That's gonna be
and I don't know. It might have been a year or two, but not much.
All right, so everyone in the chat who's into doing some homework, throw some names out there, and maybe by the time we get to slap hands, we'll be able to figure out who.
Yeah, it was like around 2009, 2010 range.
Okay, we'll look.
Hey, I had to have McDonald's every time I went to Wrigley. I made old Mikey go get it.
R.I.P.
Mikey.
God rest his soul, my man. Hey, dude, double cheeseburgers all day, dude.
He brought in he had the breakfast from Pancake House with the Swedish pancakes and the big sausage patties like this big, dude. Right? You gorge yourself with that.
Go ahead. Everybody hated it. Everybody's like, man, it's the worst. I'm like, I got you. Hold on. Yo, go get me about 30 double cheeseburgers. Came in, half hour later, there's 2 left. I said, holy shit. I said, where'd they all go? I didn't get one yet,
Mm-hmm.
You'd see the training staff get in there. I'm like, yo, you're eating these now too? Yo, you're going back on your word now, dude. What are you doing? Oh man. The smell of these burgers. I had to have one. It was great.
Always. Listen, he'd bring in McNuggets, he'd bring in double cheeseburgers.
You better get just being there quick. The fries you had to get quick.
Man, they were crushing them. And then I went in there one year and I'm like, Mikey, what happened to the McDonald's? He's like, oh, we're healthy now. And I'm like, here's $100, bro. You better go get me some McDonald's.
Go.
When he came back, and sure enough, they were all gone in 10 minutes.
Oh man.
All right, ready, Todd? I'll give you a few more and then we'll move on for now. But Kip Wells, Bronson Arroyo, Aaron Harang, Robert Manuel, David Wells, Micah Owings. Nothing yet, huh?
No. He was oh man.
You didn't play with Wells on the Reds?
It's killing me.
Well, it wasn't Bronson.
No.
He was young. Man. He was young in 9-10.
Young in 9-10. All right, we'll keep working on it.
I think he got called up from AA too, if I wasn't mistaken.
All right, for now, let's talk Rays for a moment. Our BetMGM World Series odds series continues. The Tampa Bay Rays entering the 2023 season. We're at plus 2,000 to win the World Series. Obviously, they started off the year hot, and they were in first place still midseason, July 10th, at plus 450 to win the World Series, 58-35. By the time they entered the playoffs, they were at plus 1,200. They cooled off. They lost really at least 3 out of their 5 in their starting rotation to season-ending injuries, which is pretty difficult. And what are we at entering the season? Plus 3,500 for the Rays. So BetMGM and me and I think that the Rays are going to take a step back this season. What do you guys think?
They have to, right? They have to. They don't have start. They don't. Where were their name their starters?
Yeah,
They're healthy. I mean, they got rid of Glass now. They don't have one. They're not going to have Wander Franco this year. That's pretty evident, right?
That's the big loss. That's their best player.
Yeah, and I mean, can their bullpen carry him again? I mean, they use their bullpen so much, and they got rid of a bunch of their guys in the bullpen too. So, I mean, when's McClanahan come back? When's a bunch of these guys come back? Because Springs, they got a bunch of guys that are injured. So
Rasmussen.
I mean, geez, it is like, oh man, when do these guys coming back sooner than later? Because if they don't, I mean, the Rays have always been pretty good, but right now they look short.
You want me to give you their rotation? Because it's definitely got some upside, but some of these guys are young or unproven. I mean, Pepio was in the Glasnow deal, and it's a guy that you would expect to have a good career with the Rays, but just not sure yet, right? He's shown some flashes so far in the big. Zach Littell, they converted to a starter. He's been pretty good, but probably more of a back-end guy. At the top, you've got Eflin, who they signed last year, Aaron Savali, who was the nice pickup from Cleveland, although I think Cleveland partially traded him because they felt like he was at his peak and he'd been injured a lot, which is a problem when you're joining the Rays because they do suffer as many pitching injuries as anyone. Now, Shane Baz, a lot of potential. And my favorite in this group is Taj Bradley. I mean, I think he's got potential to be a top-end starter. But again, he's super young. We haven't seen him for anywhere close to a full season yet in the bigs. So Todd Father, when you match them up against some of the other teams in the AL East, I think a lot of people are expecting them to take a step back.
Yeah, I would agree with everybody else. Shane Baz, I played with him in the Olympic trials and the Olympics. He's a character, bro. He's going to go out there and give you some energy. I like McClanahan. I like him a lot when he's healthy for sure. But, yeah, I think they had a bad taste in their mouth after that first playoff series against the Rangers. You know, I thought they were going to come out like gangbusters and go crazy and win some games, and they couldn't win one game. So, I don't know. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I don't think I'm going to put any money on him if I was going to.
That's a big number. It's a big number. Well, they've never won one, but that's a big number, 3,500. And I mean, yeah, Eflin had a great year for him last year. Savali's a good pitcher. But you look at the AL East and you're like, all right, do they match up? And I know we say this every year, but do they match up with the Orioles and do they match up with the Yankees right now with what the other teams in this division have done? I don't know. Offensively, you know, I know they still have Randy and they still got some nice pieces and they always seem to figure it out. But man, it's amazing with the Rays. Every time you look at them, you're like, they're never going to be any good. And the next thing you know, they go 13-0 and start the season 13-0 and move on. So you just never know with them. It's one of the toughest, but I wouldn't put money on them to win the World Series. To get to the playoffs, you could probably make a bet, but not to win the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, how do you stack them right now in the AL East?
At least third behind the Orioles and the Yankees for sure. Blue Jays probably are better right now too. So they're probably fourth unless something crazy happens for me.
You watch in the middle of the year, they'll bring up a pitcher or two and the guy is just going to be electric and they'll go on like a 15-game win streak or something. So can never count them out, but it's going to be a harder road this year to get through.
Their greatest strength by far, in my mind, over the past at least 5 to 7 years, is that they can take a waiver claim like Robert Stevenson and make him into one of the best relievers in baseball for their second half of the season. You just don't see that kind of success consistently from many other teams. How many players have they done that with over the last half decade to decade, right? Pete Fairbanks. It goes on. And these dudes don't just go from like getting tossed around to teams to, they're helpful. They go to the Rays and it's like, here's another high leverage guy. Here's another high leverage guy. So they don't have to spend any money on relievers. And in fact, for the most part, when they get expensive, they'll move on, right? Because they just have this factory going where they can produce another one. Now, could also make a case, we've talked about this before, AJ, that they overuse those guys sometimes. But in my mind, they kind of know that they're probably only getting 2 to 3, maybe 4 years out of them, and then they're going to move on. But the fact that you can look at a guy like Stevenson and he goes 3 or 4 teams, nobody can figure out how to really get it all to click in, and then he is a total stud with them, shows you how ridiculous they are with being able to convert pitchers into high leverage relievers, right? That's their edge that we don't probably account for often. Like I think now I do. I go, okay, their bullpen's going to be good no matter what, right? Even if I don't know half the dudes or half the guys that start off in their bullpen don't even end up in their bullpen because they get hurt or they move on. I still think that's the edge for them that you can consistently have. Because how many teams consistently have a good bullpen?
Yankees.
Yeah.
Not many.
No.
There's teams that do. They're better at it, but I don't know. Listen, here's the thing about the Rays for me. You're right. They always find a way to get guys that come out of nowhere and they're like, damn, this dude's nasty. All of a sudden, the Rays figured something out. But you're right. They also tell them to go out there and give everything they got for 5 innings if they're a starter. And, we're going to ask you for 1 inning as a reliever. And then a lot of times, sadly, these guys blow out or they move on and they're not quite the same. And, the Rays are like, well, we did the best we could with you. But my question is for Todd and for Scott. I mean, are the Rays the best organization in sports? Because they do more with less than any other team. Do they not? I mean, they don't have the resources of a Yankees. They don't have a resource of a Dodgers, but they consistently are good. They consistently find a way to make the playoffs. Granted, they've never won a World Series, but man, they consistently find ways to do things and make the organization proud. And for me, if they're not the best organization in all sports, they're top 2 or 3 because of what they do with what they are given.
Go ahead, Scott. What do you think?
I'm thinking because, and I'm sure he's talking about wins and losses because you're not talking about like fan experience business.
No. I'm just talking about what they do on the field. Not fan experience and all that is completely different. Okay. I'm talking about what they have resource-wise and then the product they put on the field.
Yes, Todd, I'll say yes. And I'll also add to this because, they're doing more with less than most teams in terms of just straight up budget. And they actually ruin many other teams in the sport because owners are so jealous of other teams of what they're doing that they try and replicate that and they don't, and then they fail. How often do we see that where teams are like, oh, I want to be like the Rays? Well, you can't. It's not working for you.
100%. Agree. They find ways to do things right with less, and I think that's well said for sure. And you can never count that team out.
Good call by New Country Song says, perfect example of what the Rays do. Matt Whistler, former starter, doesn't figure it out. They bring him in and they're like, hey, dude, 90% sliders, go for it. And he was a stud for them for a couple years.
He was like 99% sliders. I had Matt Whistler when he made his debut too. He was a fastball, sinker, slider guy. Yeah, he went to the Rays and was like slider. But then what happened to him?
He got hurt. Throwing a slider every pitch probably produces an injury. But hey, if you go to Matt Whistler and say, was it worth it? You might say, yeah, because maybe he's out of the league if he doesn't do that. And he had a few-year run. And for some guys, maybe that's a 5-year run and they get paid a little and they have some success in the bigs because that was his most successful time in the big leagues, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So it's kind of worth it.
He was a failed starter. I mean, listen, Whistler was a great young dude. I mean, he had a lot of potential, came over from the Padres in one of the many brave Padre deals. Never really panned out. It was okay. And then the Braves was like, hey, you got this wicked slider. Let's just throw it every pitch. And sure enough, cool.
And the last thing I'll say on Tampa Bay is because there's a lot of chatter in the chat about who will replace Wander Franco. I love Junior Caminero. I don't think he's going to be a shortstop. Long-term, definitely not. Even short-term, it seems like the way even they've reacted to transactions lately. I mean, Taylor Walls can still play that position when he's healthy and if he can hit. And then I'm forgetting the name of who they acquired from Seattle, but he might start the season there, who had a bunch of stolen bases for them in that deal that they swung for Luke Raley. I'm forgetting the name. Someone will get it for me in a sec, but I think he also probably fits that slot. And I think that's pretty much the reason why they made a trade like that, because Junior Caminero could be a stud. I just don't think it's not me personally. I'm not going to try and act like I'm making evaluations there, but people are just saying between the size and the range that he's probably better at, say, third base for them long-term and even short-term. So it's no knock and they'll still be okay. It's just very difficult to replace a Wander Franco when he was really all around one of the best players in the league over the past season or two, You're not going to replace that so quickly. No, someone mentioned Bruhan. He moved on to the Marlins, actually. It's Caballero. Yeah, Caballero from the Mariners. So solid. Could be okay. Could be about an average player. They'll probably have him pull the baseball more like they're doing with guys like Paredes, but you're not replacing Wander Franco so quickly. But yeah, I'm a big Caminero fan. I just don't think he's going to be the shortstop for them. So anyway, those are the World Series odds for the Rays. Little reminder, as it's still football season, for BetMGM Sportsbook account holders, you can create an entry in the BetMGM $1 Million Playoff Football Challenge for an opportunity to win a share of $1 million in bonus bets if you predict the 3 playoff football questions correctly out of eligible users. Each entry period has 3 questions. You log into your account, go to the promo tab on your account, and complete and submit the BetMGM $1 Million Football Challenge. 1 entry per customer permitted per entry period. Gambling problem or concern? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Todd, Father, before we move on, you've gotten a million more ideas of Reds pitchers. So I'm trying to scroll up because there's so much going on in the chat.
No.
But
it's got to be Mike Leake, no?
Maybe his last name was Thompson.
Thompson. I got Matt Maloney. I got Mike Leake. I got Edinson Volquez. I got
Cueto.
Nope.
Nick Massett. Sam LeCure, Jared Burton.
Love Nick Massett. Love Jared Burton. Love Sam LeCure.
Is this just like a nice stroll down memory lane for you right now?
Yeah, it is. I'm telling you, I think his last name was Thompson.
Thompson.
What was his
Trace
first?
Thompson?
No.
Tommy Thompson?
Keep going with the T's.
Brett Tomko, my favorite.
Oh, man.
You didn't play with Tomko, did you? Was he gone by the time you were there? Matt Maloney?
No.
I played with Tomko.
He's a right-handed pitcher. Starter. He was a starter, I'm telling you.
Damn, who is this?
Daryl Thompson?
No. Daryl Thompson wasn't a pitcher, was he?
I don't know. Just a name someone threw out there.
Yeah, you did. It was Jeremy from Tom Driver, yeah.
David Weathers. All right, we'll keep trying though. But anyway, we're going to talk to John Ourand.
We're running out of 2009, 2010 Reds players.
Yeah, we are. I mean, we're going to have to start going, I don't know, to Double-A at this point. But we'll figure it out. We'll keep working on it. So if someone can help me out, maybe gather all the names. We'll get to. I don't want to make it the theme of the whole show. We'll do it at the end. So I'll stop myself for now because we have 3 guests coming up in a row, basically. So John Ourand from Puck is going to join us pretty soon. He broke the news about the Baltimore Orioles. So, John's ready already. So let's get right into it, and we can mix in some of the quotes that we were just going to get to. So John Ourand from Puck, who used to be with Sports Business Journal and was with us earlier this season, broke the news about the Orioles sale. John, great to have you on. Congrats on the new gig and on breaking the story. And I don't know if you realize how enthusiastic, how excited, just pick every positive adjective out there. Not just Orioles fans are feeling, but baseball fans in general, because we are now converting one of the worst owners in sports to what looks like a group that's going to actually spend money and care. And so how big is this for Baltimore?
You know what? I was on this show. When was it? It was back in like June, right?
Yeah.
And the Orioles were in first place. And I'm an Oriole fan. I grew up in DC. They're my team. And I was talking them up, and you guys depressed the hell out of me. You're telling me that they're never going to re-sign these guys, that they were gone. It's all changed now, totally. Only the Angelos family can make the Baltimore fan base look at private equity and say we're saved. Private equity's coming to save us. So I have from people not in the business that are texting me, friends, longtime friends. I have heard the excitement. I've felt the excitement, and it just feels like something's moving because we have a good young team, and now we have deep pockets that can hopefully keep these guys together.
The thing is, for me, you said we depressed you last time we brought you on. Well, you should be throwing confetti right now because we're all in with you on this. Listen, we want Adley Rutschman to stay. We want Gunnar Henderson to stay. We want, Bradish to be signed. We want these guys to stay in Baltimore. Bautista, Cano, these guys to sign. Jackson Holiday, sign a deal before he gets to the big leagues. These are things we want because we talked about it yesterday with Brock Holt. Man, I loved going to Baltimore. It's a great experience. It's a great place. Camden Yards still rocks 30 years later. And it can only get better if you keep the fans around and you keep the fans interested. So, let's get out some confetti and let's start throwing it that, hey, the Angelos family is gone here eventually, right? And we got new owners that seem to care. They want to win, and they're putting improvements into Camden Yards. This is a great time to be an Orioles fan.
Yeah, I was just talking to a source at the home office in baseball, and it's a matter of weeks, not months. I mean, this is happening. There are no red flags around it. It seems like it's going to be as much of a rubber stamp to get this done as can be. So if you're a fan of the team, and Baltimore fans, I put this in my story. I have a son that was born in 1999, and I cajoled him. He wanted to be a Red Sox fan early on. I was like, you can't do that. You got to be an Orioles fan. He spent the first 12 years of his life cheering for under 500 baseball. Incredible. I've never seen a streak like that. So I felt guilty. I feel a little less guilty today.
Let me ask you this. So he told Angelos told the governor, Wes Moore, that he wasn't going to sell the team. And now some state officials are pissed off about that whole interaction. Is that true?
I only know the reports that I've read, which are similar to yours. I can tell you that when Puck broke the story, the team didn't know that it was coming, and the state didn't know that it was coming. So it's entirely possible that they were planning to tell the state officials, but they didn't. But they were they learned about Puck's story as it dropped. So it was I had pretty good sources on it that I didn't need to go to the team. It's a journalistic thing of loose lips sink ships. If you go to too many people.
Well, here I can provide more context too. So, John, you have the Maryland State Treasurer, Derek Davis, with those comments saying, if John Angelos can hear me now, it's deeply disappointing and troubling that you could look your state in the eye and outright lie to us about your intentions. We had a right to know, given the amount of investment we were committing to this. Since we say whatever we want on this show, I can put this out pretty clearly. John Angelos, reputation, daddy money guy, all the things he's done over the last couple of years definitely have hurt the franchise. So there's no surprise here that you cut a deal with the state where they're going to help you on your ballpark and potentially some other parts around the stadium for $600 million. It instantly upgrades your franchise in terms of valuation and probably helps him get a sale done. Now, sure, that's a dirty move. I'm going to counter this, though, John, because I'm also going to add that despite it being a dirty move, it is going to be a major net win for the state. And I'm usually not in favor, obviously, of states, cities, whatever, giving tax money to ballparks in general, but it already happened, so you can't be bitter about it. And here's the thing. It led to a sale to a group that actually cares and is going to win. I've done some homework and background on it. It sounds like big baseball fans, deep pockets, not necessarily spending like the Dodgers and Mets, but it's that similar realm of finance people that are going to invest in the team. They're not just looking to gouge every penny out of the ball club and say have someone like Angelos be the president of Masson paying himself $5 million a year despite not doing anything. So do you believe that this will be a massive net win for the city of Baltimore if they're consistently getting a product that's getting invested into? And that includes even the area, the ballpark, etc.
Yeah, that's a big if. So I hope you're right. I hope that the new ownership comes in. I hope the new ownership invests in the players on the team. I want to throw something out at the panel, though. I want to say something nice about John Angelos. He went through a strategy where I was among the people that killed him. Losing 120 games a season. That strategy is paying off on the field now. I know none of us believe that he was, and he even said he wasn't going to have the money to re-sign a lot of these players. But kind of taking a lot of the arrows and going through that strategy created a lot of the anticipation that the fans feel right now, I think.
Why doesn't he have the money? I don't
that's the other. Yeah, that's the other question.
Where does money go? He just made $1.7 billion. That's billion with a B, by the way. So I mean, he didn't have money. I mean, their payroll is what, 70 million. He gets, I don't know what he gets from TV deals. But you add in revenue sharing, I guarantee you they were making money. So it's not that he didn't have the money. It's just that he didn't want to spend the money.
I think it's because he treated the Orioles like it was a small market team. And that part of that was because when the Nationals came in, all of a sudden the Orioles used to go all the way down into North Carolina. Now they're being squeezed by the Phillies to the north and the Nats to the south. Both of whom have been in the World Series in the past. Well, when were the Nats there? 5 years or so?
Yeah, I'll counter this too, John. So two things
I'm
bother
playing
me.
devil's advocate, by the way, before everybody jumps on me.
No, I'm not jumping. I'm going to give you the baseball perspective, and I like it. I agree. If you look at where they're at now, let's remember the Orioles are one of the best teams talent wise in Major League Baseball right now. It is a young and talented team. So the best thing in my mind that John Angelos has ever done, which I think was brought up yesterday by one of our guests, is that he hired Mike Elias, because he has now built a powerhouse. And there are many teams in baseball that tank, and many of them fail. They tanked, which I'm against, especially once you have the resources to not deal with that. Reloading, okay. A couple years, step back, okay. But 5-6 years of tanking, what I think it does is it takes out a generation of baseball fans. So I just don't think it's a positive. And often it doesn't work. For them, it has worked beautifully. It was a similar model to what the Houston Astros did. So now, in order to reap the benefits and keep yourself in that place and be like the Astros, who haven't ever had to take a step back again since that time period, you do have to invest in the ball club. You do have to keep your Altuves, your Bregmans, right, et cetera, and sign those deals. The problem that I think most Orioles fans had was John Angelos said that he wasn't going to do that. And if he, God forbid, did that, he would have to jack up ticket prices, which is not how business works anyway. It's based off supply and demand. Those two things don't go completely hand in hand anyway. So now I think this is kind of the lifeboat, right? Where an owner comes in at the perfect time and they can say, great, we're handed an incredibly talented ball club. We can keep some of these players, add to it. And I think the rest of the AL East and their fans are pretty pissed off right now, because the Orioles went from being a team that could be a flash in the pan for the next 3 years to a team that might be the best team in the AL East for the next 10 years.
It also, it wasn't just that he said what he said, that when he said that he wouldn't be able to afford to re-sign Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman and Jackson Holliday. It was when he said it. The Oriole fans have gone through a decade of the worst baseball imaginable. They're finally having a good season, and he comes out with a dose of reality of like, don't expect this. This isn't going to last. And it came after, the Kevin Brown situation when he got rid of he suspended the announcer for saying that the Orioles had lost a lot in Tampa Bay. So it just created this idea, and especially in this area, because I mean, think about this, the whole DMV. I know DC's not Baltimore, but Dan Snyder going, and then Angelos going. It's just it created the impression, correct impression of just a meddling owner that just didn't want the focus to always be on the players on the field, which for a fan is unforgivable.
Yeah, and John, actually, it reminds me when we brought you on in June or July, whenever it was mid-season, it was actually sparked from Kevin Brown, the excellent play-by-play broadcaster for the Orioles, being suspended for basically nothing, for something that broadcasters do all the time. He essentially just said, hey, the Orioles haven't played well against the Rays lately. And John was like,
and in that appearance, I couldn't even play devil's advocate. It was impossible to. There was no other side. I've been trying to find the other side even still, and there is none.
No, I remember I was listening to you and Marchand on your podcast talking about it, and I was like, this is indefensible, and it's something that has to be brought out, and everybody in baseball broadcasting rallied together. So I want to take us to the Nats, because you mentioned them, and there are a lot of tie-ins here, because this deal includes MASN, which is the TV network that has been under litigation for, I think, 12 years between the Nationals and the Orioles. And I think a lot of fans now in DC are thinking, are the Nationals next to be sold? So apparently there was an offer a couple years ago from a group that included Ted Leonsis, who's a big name down there, who owns the Wizards, I think, right? And
Correct, yeah.
and also Rubenstein was in on that group, ends up buying the Orioles, and it was reported the Nats were offered $2.2 billion. They turned it down. Do you think now that MASN is in the hands of someone who's probably not going to keep it in litigation forever, that this team will be sold? And they've won a World Series lately, but I think the problem right now is they're going through a pretty successful rebuild. They're getting some really good prospects and some rising young players, but they're not spending at all yet. And I have a feeling that's because you keep costs down in order to sell a team.
Although they've just recently, in the past 2 days, have started spending on a couple of free agents. Not overspending, but putting some money out there. I don't know what the resolution is to the MASN problem, because there still is a MASN problem. If you're the Nationals, your biggest competitor, just like 45 miles to the north of you, control your media rights. That's an untenable situation to move forward with. Uh, and so I don't have any inside knowledge on what's going on with MASN, but what I can tell you is that these venture capital executives, billionaire owners, they are not going to invest close to $2 billion in a team if there's not some sort of resolution to MASN in sight. So my marching orders for the next story that I need to get is what's going on with MASN. But I can virtually guarantee you that that the learners and Rubenstein, they know exactly what's going to happen with MASN, and that there will be a resolution at some point. There has to be.
I want to go back to the Orioles real quick. So Cal Ripken has a part to play in this all too as well. I was reading some tweets about it. Can you talk a little bit about him? He's very excited to be back, with the Orioles, the guy that's played the most games ever in a row nonstop. Can we bring up a little bit about Cal Ripken and what do you think he brings to the table to help out not only, the brass and being in that kind of works, but with the ball club as well?
Listen, I love Oriole fans. I think the Oriole fan base is a rabid fan base. It's been a sleeping giant. They haven't been taken care of for about 2 decades or more. I mean, ever since really the run in the mid '90s. And so I think the main thing that Cal Ripken brings is just something for the fans to grab a hold of and be part of. If he turns out to be a really visible owner with the Orioles, it's just something that will help to solidify that fan base a lot more. So I don't know. Like you mentioned, Mike Elias. I don't see Cal Ripken getting into the room and sort of helping him out or anything like that. I almost see him as sort of a goodwill ambassador, just to help the franchise locally and to start to draw more people to the Camden Yards. Because even last year, as they were winning more than 100 games, the attendance wasn't great.
I'll use this comp. When the Dodgers in their current group, the Guggenheim group, took over from Frank McCourt, I remember even then, not knowing as much as I do now, going, whew, this is a big win for baseball. We've got deep pockets, people that care. Magic Johnson's part of the group. And it's mattered. Magic, I mean, I don't know how much baseball he knows. I don't think he's scouting, but he's been there. He's been around. He's been a part of the franchise. He's helped them. And I'm imagining Cal's going to do the same thing. So my question to you, because you cover all sports, is does baseball need more of this? And when I say that, I mean, I study the ownership groups around baseball, and some of the new ones seem to be infusing just more care, more money, more of a sense of how modern business works. And then there's some groups that, are sons of a family that took over the team. They're more worried about taking profits out of this. And we know that's bad for the community. That's bad for the sport in general. That's just bad for business. When we're talking dollars and cents about fun and entertainment and innovation, that hurts the sport. So can we create more of this with moves like this?
So this has been a part of ownership structures for forever, really. I mean, if you look at the owners of the Orioles, you have the author Tom Clancy. You have a lot of you have a lot of Baltimore sort of natives that are with that. I think Pam Shriver is one as well. The Angelos family, and I'm not trying to bash the Angelos family on this one because no team really took advantage of that. But I think what you're starting to see is what you described in LA, and Magic Johnson is not a silent partner. You're seeing that just down the road in the NFL with the Commanders, and they brought Magic Johnson in and he's been very vocal, getting out on Twitter, talking about the team and just kind of trying to build some excitement. And so I think the trend that you correctly identified is that some of these partners are no longer silent, and you're seeing a lot of the so when Josh Harris was looking to buy the Commanders in the NFL, there were a ton of different groups locally that were trying to bring local celebrities in as sort of somebody to own like 5% or some smaller percent of it. The group that Josh Harris ended up going with is the Magic Johnson type group, but you're seeing a lot more of that, and I think I would expect, especially with Cal Ripken, that you'll see some of that. Curious about the Bloomberg connection. I heard Michael Phelps's name. I don't know if that's been out there or not, but I'm not reporting that. I've just heard that. So there are different connections to the Baltimore market to try to get that done.
Well, John, one place it didn't work out was in Miami. Remember they brought in some guy. I think he was a shortstop. He played for the
Are you trying to get me something to say something nice about a New York Yankees shortstop?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, because they tried it. Remember, they brought in Jeter as presidents of baseball ops or whatever, and he lasted a few years and was like, "Man, this is a lot of work. This sucks."
But Jeter basically had Elias's role. Like they're not bringing in Cal to do that role. They're bringing in Cal to almost like greet fans come through the stadium. Although I'm sure it'll be a bigger role than that.
Sure, for sure. But we brought up the Nats, we brought up Masson, we brought up that whole mess. What's going on with the rest of baseball and their Bally / sports networks that aren't paying? I mean, you also cover this. Is there an end in sight to this? I saw where certain teams are going to get paid and certain teams aren't. I mean, is there an end to this coming up?
Yeah, there's an end in sight. We're going to find out by the end of this baseball season. My sense is that the baseball teams that have deals with Bally's are going to be fine for this season. And by the end of the season, we're going to get a sense of whether or not. So Bally's is owned by Diamond Sports, and Diamond Sports is in bankruptcy. And to try to come out of bankruptcy, Diamond Sports did a deal with Amazon, where Amazon is going to control the digital streaming rights for I think only 5 baseball teams are in that, but eventually they're hoping to get more. So we don't know whether that's going to be successful or whether that's just sort of like a Hail Mary. Let's see if this ends up working. So I'm not going to predict anything. I'm just going to say that by September, we're going to know if Bally's is going to start to really wind down or if it's coming out of bankruptcy and it will be able to match those rights for the RSN rights for the local teams.
How much do you think it's affecting the sport in general, and how do you compare it to what NBA, NFL, and I guess NHL to an extent are going through? Like, I always like to get the litmus test from somebody who is looking at sports from a wider lens because we're so baseball focused. Like, is baseball in a good spot long term? Because I think you'd probably agree baseball in terms of being in the national landscape of conversation has fallen behind where it used to be. So I'm always trying to figure out how can they get back there. And some of it has to be tied in to the way that these TV deals work, because the NFL's done such a great job of staying on network television. And then even when they do a big move like an Amazon, and I know you've talked about, Peacock and all of that, like it gets talked about a ton. MLB's been doing stuff like that for years. And some of it I think has been either too early or it's hurt the sport because fans always complain about blackouts and I got to pay 8 subscription services just to find my game to watch all 162.
I'm so glad you asked that question because there is a comparison to the World Series versus the NBA Finals, and but since we're talking about the RSNs locally, there is nothing bigger than baseball, and that presents somewhat of a problem, I think, for the league as you do these national deals. I don't think it's a huge problem though, but locally, baseball ratings and just the minutes viewed, you have 162 games versus 82 for basketball and 80 for hockey. So there are more games, there are more people watching the games, and so because of that, the bullseye is really on baseball as it pertains to these local rights. And so, if regardless of what happens to Diamond and the Bally Sports, there's an unmistakable trend that's happening in the business to where people are cutting the pay TV cord and going to streaming services. As that happens, the money that baseball teams get from the RSNs is going to drop, and as that money drops, it's going to potentially affect everything from player salaries to front office salaries to just people working for the teams. And so I don't want to sound like Chicken Little, but there is like a disaster scenario where like the RSN money dries up and you don't know where to go and try to find it, and that's going to be from the next time a players association deal is up, that's it's something that's going to be really a tough one to get through.
Okay, so you're saying that the money in the RSNs is drying up. Where does baseball make up that money? What's the next thing? I asked this the other day, and everyone's kind of like, I don't really know. What's the next thing? What's the next way for baseball to keep up? Is it an all-inclusive streaming deal? Is it just a local streaming deal where you just stream your own team? I mean, what's the way? Because baseball is not going to be like, we're losing money. We're giving money back. Like, how does MLB keep up and continue to make the money that they're making now?
That's the whole problem. I don't see a path to where they can make the same amount of money that they make now. The pay TV business is so good for sports. The sports business couldn't come up with a better strategy than what pay TV provided them. So you guys know I'm an Orioles fan who lives in Washington, D.C., and I watch as many games as I can on MASN. Well, when I walk my dog at night and I look into people's windows and I see what they're watching, I'm the only one watching the Orioles. But all those other people are paying for the per subscriber fee that MASN gets. So they're subsidizing my addiction to want to watch the Orioles. So what you described, as you go to streaming, all of a sudden I'm going to be the only one going to the streaming on the block. And so what are they going to have to charge me in order to stream those games? I can't depend on my neighbors to help subsidize that anymore. That's going to have to come from just the hardcore and casual fans. And then since we did start talking about the Orioles and they're my team, what are the odds I would have bought a streaming package for the Orioles from 2017 through 2020 or 2021? Zero. So it just becomes a much more difficult. There's still money to be made. Local rights are still valuable. It's just that we're transitioning right now from a system that is so profitable and so good for major professional sports.
So then, John, my last one for you. Do you believe in the current plan that is being put in place during these bankruptcy hearings? So Amazon jumps in kind of at the last moment, right? It's like ninth inning, down a few runs. Looks like things are going to wind down and the league was going to take over the rights. And the plan was for them to keep taking over rights of teams, I think, package that and then have them run it and license it to a place like Amazon, Apple, etc. Amazon jumps in, provides that lifeboat to Diamond Sports so that they can keep going. And it looks like if it gets approved, they will now be a long-term company again. Do you think that's better? Do you think Amazon and Bally's Diamond, whatever you want to call it, together is a better force than the league and the league running everything and the media and then just licensing that to, say, a tech streamer?
Yeah, and I think that's a better system because I think it makes a lot more sense to get a third party involved, and especially a third party like Amazon that already has a structure in place to where they can get this out. This was actually when a bunch of teams, the Yes Network launched and it was successful. So then every team decided they wanted to launch their own regional sports network. This is 20 years ago, so I'm sounding like an old guy, and I apologize. But for a lot of these teams, it's so much easier to just sit on your butt and collect money. Why do I don't want to have to set up and build out a production studio and hire talent and produce games and have all these added expenses. It's so much easier for me just to sit down and collect a check every month. And I think that's something that Amazon will, or a company like Amazon will provide for the digital streamers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like it. I like the way that it's looking at the moment. So we'll see what happens. And obviously for us, I mean, we're just on the outside. We just want fans to complain less and just enjoy the games and have a good time.
If that happens, I'm dying to see if that happens.
Right? I just want happiness for people. I'm that simple these days. So that's how all of us are. Well, John, it was awesome having you. Congrats again. I don't know if there's anything you want to plug that you've got coming up or the move to Puck, but if so, kind of throw it out there because I think I mentioned to you in text. I follow one of the other kind of Puck pods and writing from one of your now colleagues in the sports, or I guess more in the business media, TV, sports world.
For Bellany, yeah. This is my first week. You got me on my fourth day at Puck News. Broke the Orioles story on the second day. I was very happy about that one. I've been at Sports Business Journal for about 18 years, now at Puck. And guys, I love coming on this show. So anytime you ask, I'll come on. You guys do a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, John. And yeah, you can follow John. The Twitter handle is Ourand_Puck. John Ourand with us on FT Live. Thanks again, John. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Happy New Year, John.
Good stuff.
It's February, bro.
Oh,
it's February.
I keep forgetting. Yeah, my time just goes away.
We're just about happiness here. We just want fans to enjoy watching their sports.
He brought happy, and I wanted to bring a new year in there. That's all.
I will say this, okay? So I've listened to John.
Happy new job.
Happy new job. That's good.
Yeah.
I've listened to John. I mean, he's really smart, obviously, as you can tell on this stuff. So it's impressive when he says he enjoys coming on the show with us, because I feel like we are pretty well educated now on the media business world of baseball and kind of how everything ties together. And AJ, I know you and me talk about this a lot. The reason we bring this stuff up is, number one, fans request it. Like literally in the live show right now, our numbers went up when this conversation started. So clearly there's an interest in this, and it's not being covered on other shows as frequently, but also it all ties together. Like we're a baseball show, but a changing of the guard with owners completely changes the complexion of Baltimore baseball, the AL East, in all of MLB. If there's another team now that's going to be competing and serious, another owner that's voting with baseball's best interests in mind versus just their personal interests.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Agreed, baby.
That's all I needed.
And that's
pretty much summed it up.
That's the difference between some other programs, you know?
So before our next guest, let's just do a little quickie. That's what he said. I'll give you David Rubenstein, who is now going to be the owner of the Baltimore Orioles, because we had our guest, Andy Koska, on yesterday, and he was tweeting about it. And look at Rubenstein already giving us a little bit of I would say, Steve Cohen vibe by saying thanks and acknowledging a journalist and then saying, here's my full statement. I like that, right? Like you want the billionaires to be down to earth. It sounds like we've got the potential here, which I'm into. And then he said he's grateful to the Angelos family for the opportunity, what you'd expect here. But I think it is important to see that he's saying he wants to win. Like you couldn't honestly say that with the last group over the last 5 years. Like they want to win, but like not that they were going to invest in the team. I mean, when you're 29th in payroll, you clearly don't care that much and you have other intentions. So I think it's a positive sign here. And if you're listening to the pod, you can check out this portion of the show on YouTube or check out the Twitter account for David Rubenstein and how he's taken over the Orioles as the control person and the owner there. So, all right, let's get to our next guest on FT Live. I'm going to turn it over to Todd Father to make the introduction because it is a colleague of yours. So let's get it. Yeah. And also, I was yelled at yesterday for not properly introducing some people on the show. So you know what? This is all you, baby.
All right, our next guest coming on is my good friend and colleague. He's up and coming all over the place. He does a lot of different sports. Mike Monaco, ESPN, with the Red Sox. I mean, I can keep going. Mike, you want to keep going, brother?
Yeah, what else you got on the resume?
Hard to say, Todd, how I could add to that just glowing intro. I certainly don't have you beat in terms of setting or backdrop. Yes, I'm doing this from my car. And talk to me about your microphone, man. That's pretty big league right there.
Hey, this is what happens when you're big time like me. You got to get the best mics possible. So I give our producers them credit, man. So let me ask you this: how you doing first and foremost? Talk to us about where you're at right now, what you're doing. Let the people know, like, you're all over the place, man. You're all over the map. I love watching and love listening to you. So what is next on the agenda for you? Spring training, hopefully coming up?
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. So for anyone who doesn't know, I'm a broadcaster with ESPN and then do some fill-in work with the Red Sox on NESN as well. So right now, in the thick of a bunch of different sports, college basketball and NHL for the most part. But now that we've hit February, I mean, you guys live and breathe this stuff, and I do too, but now really starting to get excited for baseball. And at ESPN, fortunate to cover baseball as high as the major leagues. You and I were doing the wild card round together. You had to slum it with me down in St. Pete. But college baseball, Little League World Series, it's a ton of fun. So right now, getting ready for some college hoops this weekend down at Louisville. Had a game at Boston College earlier this week, and then next week going to Vegas for NHL. Coming out of the All-Star break. So yeah, it's a fun life and on the road a lot.
Mike, let's be serious. What happened? Why you were the favorite to be the White Sox play-by-play guy? What happened?
I'm sorry if I disappointed you, AJ, of all people. But no, the White Sox, man, they treated me well. I had the opportunity to fill in there in 2021. And in 2023 for a few games as well for the great Jason Benetti. And
he's a traitor. We don't talk about him. We don't.
No,
he's a traitor.
come on.
We don't talk
Jason's
about him.
good people. We love Jason.
He's out. He's out.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to give him a hard time for that as well. But no, just I'm excited about John Triffin. I think he's an awesome announcer. A ton of energy and versatility, and has already had a great career. And I think a huge upside to him. But yeah, the White Sox, I mean, what I will say about them is just amazing people and have treated me really, really well in the times I've dealt with them.
Okay, so John took over. He did slam ball. So what's the best thing you've done? I saw you did log rolling once. So I mean, is there anything that can beat slam ball?
I've done boxing, which I would love to see Todd get involved with some of that. Fencing. Gymnastics, those are probably some of the tougher sports that I've done before. But I don't know if that's as cool as slam ball. Like I remember growing up watching slam ball. What was it on Spike? Like that to when you're growing up as a kid watching that, like it looks like the coolest thing ever and something that you want to have in your backyard. But no, I don't have anything like super eccentric. At ESPN, I think it's like once a year we do, the Ocho, and they do a bunch of random stuff like that. Like electricians stuff is somehow turned into a sport. I think I got to diversify the portfolio a little bit and get something totally zany.
Mike, I can relate. So first off, I mentioned this the other day, massive slam ball fan on Spike growing up. I was hooked. I was into it. I had reached out, years back trying to see if it was going to come back and I wanted to be a part of it, whatever, right? That was like one of my dreams. I love it because I was a basketball player, but I do have something competitive. Okay. Back in my play-by-play days. One of my first gigs was actually with ESPN Radio. It was coming off an internship with them. And they said, hey, anyone want to cover a dumpling eating contest in New York City? I think it was like Governor's Island, one of those spots, right? And I was all over it, obviously. I was like, literally, I would cover anything. I'd cover play-by-play at a doctor's office if you want me to. So I called in a couple times with updates. And that was one of the first things I did on radio.
We need more dumpling eating contests, right? Joey Chestnut's cool and all, and Kobayashi, he had a great career and his prime was long lived, but give me more dumplings, man. That's where it's at.
Dude, that's what I do when I talk, I'm sure you've done it, talk to young broadcasters or you speak at a camp or a program. And when I give an example of, hey, take on anything early on, like don't be full of yourself and don't be like, oh, I only want to call basketball or football or baseball, whatever. Like, take that dumpling eating contest role because someone's got to do it.
Oh, that's an all-timer. I'm a little I'm first of all jealous because of the food, but I don't have as good of an answer as that. Like gymnastics is mainstream enough, and you got the Olympics. There's no Olympics when we're talking food of any kind, and dumplings. So yeah, I gotta get a better answer than that.
That's awesome. I want to get into the Red Sox a little bit while we have you. Just seems like they haven't really done much. You see any blockbuster moves happening from them? And how do you think they're going to steer in the AL East here, man? They haven't really, they've got a couple pitchers, I think Giolito, but other than that, they don't have that many things going on for him. Verdugo is with the Yankees now. So talk to me about the Red Sox and the nature of them.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if they do, in fact, do anything else. And I listened to Ken Rosenthal on your guys' show and kind of what you guys got into with him about it. It doesn't seem like there's anything hot right now, and I'm not breaking any news with that, but there is room, still to stay under the CBT if they wanted to. And I think it's upwards of, perhaps 30 million for the year that they could spend if they did in fact want to. So it's still open as a possibility. It doesn't sound like there is anything imminent. And and there's a lot to like about the core in the future, certainly, but those top end prospects are a year or multiple years away, it would seem. Now that being said, there are a lot of pieces that I like individually on the team. I'm excited to see another year of an old teammate of yours, Todd, in Tristan Casas, from playing with Team USA. Like, I'm excited to see what another year looks like for him. He has been through a full major league season before. A guy like Von Grissom, getting a chance, obviously was blocked in Atlanta, gets a chance. I'm excited about his bat. Things like that I think they could outperform some of, what the projections are, at least publicly for them. And it wouldn't be surprising to me to see them put together, maybe a better year than some of the projections. But like you said, I mean, the division is what the division is. Like, I remember talking to Red Sox front office people in the past, and they're saying, we fully recognize that we are in the toughest division in sports, not just in baseball. Like, that is the way it is in the AL East. And in the last year, with what's happened with the Orioles, it's only gotten more challenging. That's just life in the AL East. So I think, going to be a tall task to find your footing for any of the 5 teams in that division.
That's the problem, Mike, is that if they were in, say the AL Central, last year they would have been competing for a division title, and this year it would be the same case. The expectations are going to be significantly higher when you're in the AL East. They win like 82 games, but okay, they were like a 500-ish team, and you're like, they were in last because of what they're dealing with. So my question for you is about the pitching, because I actually am fine with the lineup for the most part. They probably exceeded most people's expectations last year, and I think it'll be an even better looking lineup this coming season. I also really like Tyler O'Neill, the upside there of the acquisition. On the pitching side, because you got to watch them on a daily basis there, where is the hope in your mind that the pitching will be better, aside from just saying, Breslow and Bailey are there? Because to me, that's more of a long-term play. But it's really Sale gone, Giolito added, not much else. They might even still trade Kenley Jansen. So can you paint a picture where you say, if everything works out right, this is why they competed for a wild card spot?
First of all, obviously a fan of the program. So on the Tyler O'Neill front, can we talk about his dad being 5'11", 250, 255, and body fat at 5%? Like, that is insane, and stopped me dead in my tracks when I heard that. But yeah, pitching wise, I think the best case scenario, to your question, Scott, of how it all breaks properly, because like, you subtracted Sale, you added Giolito, and a bounce back season is certainly conceivable for him, especially from the second half and what he dealt with personally in the second half of the season. But I think you're hoping that Josh Winkowski takes a step. You're hoping that Tanner Houck takes a step. You're hoping for health, first and foremost, for Garrett Whitlock. And it's going to be really interesting to see role for all 3 of those guys, who all 3 of them have been in different roles in their time. And there's been a lot of discourse, certainly as it relates just to Garrett Whitlock, on what the best role is for him. But if you are stretching all 3 guys out, and if you do get length from them, that'll be, one avenue for how things could outperform, what it looks like right now, and obviously what last year was in terms of pitching. The other thing I would say, if you did like a blind resume test, I've had people in the Red Sox front office say this to me, with Cutter Crawford, he might not have the same name value as other pitchers with similar experience in their major league career, but his numbers are pretty impressive. And then the raw stuff has always been, pretty sexy, like the fastball, carry, the breaking ball. He has a really full arsenal of pitch mix. So I think he's a guy that, if he takes another step, like, that's what the optimist would say on how pitching looks a little bit better if they are not going to go sign a guy in their backyard in Montgomery.
All right, Mike, there's Tyler O'Neill's dad, by the way. That's how you're 5'11", 250. You look like that.
Yo, Mike, it's like, what body part do you even focus on the most there? Like the thighs or the six pack, or geez, that's insane. Yeah, 6 is totally underselling that.
He's offended.
Hey, Todd and I have a keg, okay?
Yeah. Are we doing any push-up contests or what?
No, that was when he won Mr. Canada, I believe. So
yeah, and then runner-up, I heard a few times, right?
Yeah, he's pretty, and he has a great mustache too, which is even better. All right, so Mike, I got this. All I'm gonna say, 79.5 is the number for the Red Sox. Over or under?
I'd go over. I'm an optimist by trade.
I mean, you're
I
like me
grew up
picking the
around.
White Sox to make the playoffs last year. You're that big of an
Yeah,
optimist?
he's a homer.
Yeah, call me a homer. But no, I do think, and they've dealt with some pretty bad injury luck. Like that's not a biased answer in saying that over the last couple of years. So yeah, give me a surprising over. I'm with Scott. Like I like the offensive pieces. Yoshida wore down a little bit maybe toward the end of last year, but if he's DHing more, presumably that's less of a concern. And obviously, just a second season in the States, you would expect more comfort. I mean, it was a really big difference for him, even with things as simple as travel, like changing time zones was not something that he dealt with in Japan. So I like him. Jaron Duran obviously had a breakout last year. If Abreu can be anything close to what he was down the stretch last year, in admittedly a small sample size, that's a piece to really like. I think, I think one kind of variable wild card in all of this is, does Rafael Devers find another level to get to, right? Like he's paid as a $300+ million player. And, can he get to that 900, 950 OPS level regularly? Maybe there's still something untapped there. But yeah, give me the over. Let's talk about some health. Maybe there's another surprise signing in there. And yeah, we'll smash the over.
My last one with the Red Sox, you talk about a couple guys, Devers to name one, the guy like Justin Turner who's not there anymore. Who in your opinion is the leader in that clubhouse? Who's the guy that they're going to lean on and going to talk to when struggles do arise? Like, who's the guy that's going to be like, hey man, let's have this meeting, let's go over something, let's get back on the saddle here, and let's start getting some wins. So who's going to be that guy this year?
Yeah, I think Kenley is a leader by what he's done, and now year two for him. But I don't think you can discount just how much change the clubhouse for the Red Sox has underwent in the last few years. I mean, you think about losing Xander, obviously a second year without him, and he was a guy so respected by everyone on that team and everyone on that staff and in the organization. And then Kike, like Kike was at the crux of just the personality of that team. And then Turner, in very short order, to your point, Todd, like talking to his teammates about the way he was and what they learned from him last year never ceased to amaze me. Like I remember talking with Rob Refsnyder about it. I don't know if you could have made more of an impact, not in terms of on-field results, in 1 year in a market like that in a bigger way than what Justin Turner did. So I think it's a little bit TBD in terms of, where the leadership comes from and just who assumes that mantle of kind of being the alpha in the clubhouse.
Mike, what's the pulse of fans right now? Obviously, the full throttle comment pissed people off because they have not been full throttle and they've backtracked on that statement. But what do you think's the number one complaint right now, just overall from Red Sox fans? And hey, let's be real, the expectations are high. I'm always good with that. It's just like you have to be careful with a fan base because if you tell them something and then you don't go that way, especially in Boston, they're going to hold you to it. And there's probably going to be, I don't know, 10,000 full throttle shirts for opening day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely frustration, and for probably the most ardent fans, it's something stronger than that, right? Like they have wanted to see spending, for a few cycles now in terms of off seasons and even in season moves. I think what's a little bit different right now is that the comments that were made after the full throttle comments, about where payroll probably or possibly might be this year, that was something that wasn't really said publicly in the past. So in some ways it is, more in line with delivering a message to a fan base. But I think there is still, like any fan base, like you want the best players, you want the best moves that the hot stove gets talking, and you want to be active, right? Like especially when you hear about Jordan Montgomery being right here all off season with his connections with his wife, you get excited about that. And Yamamoto, like people wanted him as much as any recent free agent that Red Sox fans were excited about that I can remember. So yeah, it's frustration and a desire to spend. I think if I were to say what the pulse of the fans is, doesn't mean that they're not going to make a move still. Doesn't mean that they can't have a great season, but that's kind of the lay of the land, I would say.
I like it. Okay, so got a broadcaster question for you because I'm sure you're friends with Kevin Brown, Orioles play-by-play, right? I mean,
Yes.
very nice dude in the industry. You guys have probably had some times where you've seen each other or hung out, whatever it is, right? So we all remember last year, and I think all broadcasters kind of banded together last year when the suspension went down from Masson. So is this a great day in broadcaster history because Masson is actually being sold? That means John Angelos is no longer going to be president of that company. And, I mean, it's tough enough to call a game, okay, and to deliver the way that you want to fans. And yes, you have to speak in a certain way when you're representing a team. But when you can't even say something as simple as the Rays took it to the Orioles for a few years, just a fact, it's got to get in your head. I mean, I know if I was broadcasting and I got to that level, like, sure, I worked for the league, I had to do all kinds of things and you had to talk differently. But if I then thought, wait, can I even say that a team struggled against another team? That would screw with my head beyond belief. I'd probably lose my shit and have, a verbal issue or whatever. This is probably where I am now for a reason. Anyway, do you think this is a great day in broadcasting history? Because that was one of the more poisonous situations in baseball broadcasting.
I'll say this, I'm not here to dance on anyone's grave, but I will say that when it happened, I, like many other people, reached out to Kevin, who, is a friend of mine. We were in AAA together at the same time, calling games, to voice your support for him. And I think everyone knows by now, like, he was trying to frame it in a positive light as well for how the Orioles were doing compared to recent series history, and something that was in the game notes and that he said. What I'll say about Kevin is, he is one of the most talented broadcasters that we have, I think, in all of Major League Baseball, and he's incredibly versatile at other sports as well. Someone that I look up to, and have for a while. So Orioles fans, I think it's the perfect combination of how good your team is with how entertaining your broadcast booth is at the same time, because him and Big Ben talking about song lyrics last year still makes me laugh, and something I check in on, like, maybe once every couple of months for a laugh, where Kevin has to teach Ben on the Bayou some music. And then you throw in Jim Palmer as well, and you get a really good three member booth when they're all together. So Kevin's one of the really good ones.
I want to ask you this. You've been doing it for some time now, hosting, broadcasting, top analyst, whatever you call it. I want to ask you, out of all the things you've done so far, can you name like your favorite call that you've ever done before? And whether it's basketball, baseball, do you have like one time where it's like, oh, I'll remember that for the rest of my life? That was such a cool moment.
Is it us in Williamsport with a
No,
Curacao go-ahead home run?
Dude, it's funny that you bring that up. I think I have something along those lines. If we can show something. I was hoping you'd say that.
We don't know. 3-2 in the air, center field. Contreras to the wall. Gone. Curacao leads. I do not believe it. Actually, I do. Holy cow! This game, every game we've done, there's been crazier things. Absolutely unbelievable.
That would have to be your greatest call ever, I would assume, right?
You know what? In all seriousness, I'm not just pandering to you. Like, that is honestly one of my favorite moments shared with a friend in a booth. And the energy of the Little League World Series, I say this to anyone who asks, like, of all the things I'm very fortunate to do, there is nothing I enjoy more every year than the Little League World Series. And I think the funniest behind the scenes story of that call and us in the booth is Tim Kirkjian's reaction to your analysis on that call. Like, he walked in the next day and he's like imitating you, and he's like, "Hey, big dog, I don't believe what I saw. There have been crazier things that happened." And he's doing some sort of New York, New Jersey accent for you, but piling on. Yeah, that was insane. But witnessing your bromance with Tim Kirkjian firsthand at the Little League World Series and watching that grow was something special. And you guys would just kind of spend a lot of time developing your chirps back and forth. And I would look over at Tim's notepad while we were doing a game, and he would have written down in size 30 font what he was going to say when your name came up to make fun of you, so that he remembered it. And it often started with, "Hey, big dog."
Hey, big dog. Yeah. See, Bro, I've fallen in love with that guy, man. He's the best. I copied every move he did, bro, and it was the best thing I've ever done. So I appreciate you saying that was your best moment so far. Thank you.
I like that. Hey, I'm with you too, Mike. I mean, for me, when I've been asked about like my favorite moment, either calling games or just being at games, working and broadcasting, World Baseball Classic for me, and not this past one, I wasn't at that one. The one before that, I called a lot of it. Was the best broadcasting experience I ever had. And I did international for World Series, and the WBC was better. It was, I mean, my top moment, I think it was USA versus Dominican Republic, WBC in Miami, and I'm a Miami guy. So you're in that park and it's usually empty and it's full and it's freaking nuts and it's like World Cup atmosphere. I was like, this is the best. This is insane. We need to promote more of this. So, I mean, you get that on the Little League level too. It's just different. That's why it's easy to see why players will say, I don't even need to make any money. I just want to play for my country and do a tournament for a couple weeks. And Mike Trout's having the time of his life.
Yeah, like the energy that comes out of that, like it's why I enjoy tuning in to watch that event. I think it's why so many baseball fans resonated with it last time around. And yeah, like the Little League World Series, I've now been lucky to do it for 3 years, and it got more normal this past year, the last 2 years, but really this past year, kind of getting back to full capacity fans, international teams, all of that. And like the stories we learn from around the world are incredible. Like Todd and I would be talking through a Taiwanese translator to a 12-year-old kid who's bigger than me, and he's throwing 83 miles an hour. Like that is nuts. But it was so cool to speak to this kid through a translator on a human level and hear about his upbringing and how he wasn't raised living a lavish life, and he was taught how to pitch through a guy who now works for the Padres. And this kid, Fan Chun Jun, is the pitcher. And he goes out in the Little League World Series and he's blowing 81 in his first start. And the Padres then went to this guy who works in Asia scouting for them and said, hey, have you heard of this 12-year-old who we just saw at the Little League World Series? And the Padres employee is like, yeah, like I taught this kid his slider. So you just learn stories like that from around the world in that setting. And it doesn't even have to be the kind of the top performers. Like, Todd would be down there talking to whoever it is, filling up his notebook, and Tim Kirkton would be standing basically on the foul line, watching infield, outfield being taken place. It's a pure event. Same reason I love doing the College World Series. Obviously different, but the way fan bases turn out for that and descend into the middle of the country in Omaha, Nebraska. Same reason. Like it's a purity. It's why we all fell in love with this sport. And not to sound too hokey, but like that's the good stuff. And I think you really appreciate it more when you've been around it at the major league level and at the highest level, and kind of take a step back and just remember about the game in general.
All right, Mike, you said your greatest call was with Todd, but you know what could have been your greatest call? A Friday night Cubs White Sox, walk-off homer by Eloy Jimenez. You're just like, the White Sox beat the Cubs. Oh my gosh. And you throw it to Steve Stone is over there like the Stone Pony. It's like, that was a loopy breaking ball that he always says. You could have been like, yes, go White Sox for like the next 30 years. But nope, you enjoy the Little League World Series.
I would have absolutely loved doing that. I really would have. Stoney, like, you want to talk about a guy who's been doing it for a long time and hasn't lost the step at all. Stoney's a legend, and we've had some fun times in the booth. The first year I filled in with him, it was like my third game working with him. My first home game, though, at Guaranteed Rate Field, and I'm all excited. And I've done major league games before, but this happened out of the blue. Benetti got COVID. They asked me to fill in. Show up to the ballpark, and I realized, oh shit, I forgot my belt. And so I had to call Stoney and be like, hey man, like, I know you don't really know me. This is crazy, but like, have you left home yet? Do you happen to have an extra belt? And sure enough, he brought one, like any good teammate in the broadcast booth. But yeah, he let me hear that for a while. We have dodged foul balls together in the broadcast booth, which is always entertaining. He literally almost got decapitated by a comebacker that was foul, back to the booth, that was foul in like August this year, and it smoked the monitor behind him. So I've had many good times with Steve Stone, and he is literally one of the best to have done it and is still doing it.
You might not take this advice, but if you wear really tight pants, you don't have to wear a belt. It's been my thing lately. I don't know if that means anything to you. These guys, I'm sure, will have a field day with the advice.
Oh my gosh.
You got to untuck in that case, right?
Yeah. I'm not a
Yeah.
tuck-in guy with basically
Okay.
any kind of shirts these days. But the
Really?
tight pants, I'm not
Scooter,
Walker Bueller
I
status,
see you
but
as a tucking.
you see me as a tuck-in? No.
Yeah, anything. I see you in anything, to be honest. You can do both.
I can pull it off. I appreciate that, but I'm not the prep boy kind of thing. It's more of it's the tight pants, the tight shirt, just like you guys like to make fun of me for. But I
Mike's
do have
got
one
it.
more.
Lululemon, listen, Lululemon now makes some pants with elastic waist that look just like their ABC pants. They are the greatest thing ever. So we'll do a game in. Listen, I mean, I don't know what they do in Red Sox Nation, but when we do Fox games, you never see from
No.
like here down. So listen, I've done games in shorts, I've done games in flip flops. Adam Amin, I love him, does games in jeans all the time. It is the only thing we've ever gotten in trouble for was one time we did a game without a tie, and before we got through the open, everyone's phone was ringing. Who said they could do the game without a tie on? Who said they could do it? And it was like, oh, sorry. Oops. But other than that, I mean, you can wear whatever you want below the waist.
I'll give you a quick story because Mike will probably appreciate this because Mike, as you can tell, I've been dying to not wear suits for a long time. And so I was calling like the Facebook and YouTube games and all that. And we had quick combos and got rid of all that.
Yeah.
So we were dressing casual, but also back in my MLB Network days, it was like 2 or 3 years ago. They always talk about wanting to be younger at MLB as the league in general, right? So I brought up in our like town hall meeting before the season started. I was like, do we have to wear ties for everything all the time? And you bring that up to your bosses in front of everyone else, and they're like, I guess not. So then some of the shows started ditching ties. So, I made many new friends, at least temporarily. Some of the older broadcasters like brought it back and were arguing that we should wear ties, but I at least was trying to lead the charge there. Cause I'm like, yo, it's sports. Do we have to wear ties all the time?
Yeah, when I first filled in on Red Sox games in 2019, it was suit and tie, like the whole deal. And at the time, like the full-time announcers, not me, Dave O'Brien, Jerry Remy, rest in peace, Dennis Eckersley, like they had a suit deal with this local, outfitter, Joseph Abboud, who made really nice suits for them at the start of every year. So I was kind of, pumped for that. I thought, hey, even though I'm doing a small number of games filling in for OB, maybe I'll, weasel my way into a nice custom suit. And of course, they ended with that right around the same time and with COVID and all. So now we do polo shirts a lot with Red Sox stuff, and for a lot of our ESPN games too. Like it's just a polo. And we have a lot of them in Williamsport at the Little League World Series. So we're always trying to color coordinate, what the proper color, so we're all looking the same. But AJ, just back to Adam Amin, he's one of my biggest mentors and is obviously an incredible announcer. He's got the cardigan look down. I don't know if that's what it was when he went no tie. That is something I definitely cannot pull off. I'm trying to venture when I do NHL games into the turtleneck under like a blazer. So that's kind of as crazy as I'll get. But
Wait,
I've never been confused.
First of all, did you say Adam Amin is your mentor? You're surely not younger than Adam?
Yes, he is.
I'm younger than Adam, and
He's very young.
So he was calling ESPNU Notre Dame softball when I was a student at Notre Dame, and he would let me come stand behind him in the broadcast booth of this, pretty tiny college broadcast booth. Like it was a college softball stadium and really nice, but like it's not some massive press box with a ton of space that's used to having national TV. And I would just be looking over his shoulder, like asking him why something was highlighted in yellow or orange. So yeah, he's been a really good mentor and resource to me.
Yeah, AJ, There's a differential there. My guess is Adam is 37, and my guess is Mike is 28.
I appreciate anyone who guesses under my age now. I am 30. I am washed up. I'm a bag of bones, as last year's men's league pickup basketball reminded me. Yeah, I would say that's accurate. I don't know exactly how old Adam is, but I think of him as
I think he's about 37.
A broadcasting generation older.
You know what he pulls off now? He pulls off the cardigan with the tie. So he goes cardigan. Watch him on an NFL game. He'll go cardigan, sweater, and then he'll pull the tie off. And I'm just like, and so like he also does great. So like if we do a game in Minnesota, he'll wear a Prince t-shirt. Right? So he's walking around. He's like, oh, look at me in my Purple Rain shirt, right?
Smart move.
Or then whatever city we go into, he'll have a shirt that like matches the city. So we go into the locker room, like we're in Minnesota. Rocco's like, "Oh, you're a big Prince fan." Oh yeah, me. I'm a big Grateful Dead. Oh yeah, oh no. Like he does it in every city, so every manager's like, "Oh, look at you, you know about so and so," and it's just like he pulls it off perfectly all the time.
And then just gets like dressed into whatever he's actually wearing, like in the booth right before the open, or what?
Yeah, so we do it a little different at Fox and maybe at ESPN. We wear like a golf shirt or whatever you want before when you do the meetings, and then 10 minutes before we're about to do like rehearsal, everybody hurry up and get dressed. So everyone's scrambling, throwing on their tie real quick, and then they're like, okay, we're on in 2 minutes, and everyone's like literally, what was my makeup? How's my tie? Okay, let's go, boys. All right, let's go.
Yeah. Oh, and don't even get me started on makeup. Like that's a whole new world. Even though I've been doing it a little while in this industry, broadcasting, like getting used to that is not super
War
common
paint.
for me.
War
Still.
paint. We call it
Yeah.
war paint.
Strap
Sure.
in, lather it
That's
on.
right.
Let's go.
Time to go. Time to go to work. Let's go. Friggin'
Well,
you see
fun
us all in
fact
the.
there too. It's fun when a player retires and then you work with him, because I had that one year. I mean, a few years actually, where when we first started calling Facebook games, then it turned into YouTube eventually too. We would have a different broadcast team every week, and it was often like a dude fresh off the field. And when they learned about makeup, you'd often get like the I don't want it, and they're like, that's cool, but like you're just gonna look terrible because it's just going to shine off your face. They're like, it's just what we do. So it's fun to see like the macho, like, oh, I don't wear makeup. I just pitched in the big leagues. And they're like, great, but your family's going to say you look like shit. So can you just listen to us and take a drop of powder?
Yeah. Todd and I were doing ESPN radio for the wild card series, Rangers Rays. So like we had it so nice. We just like
Perfect.
we could literally wear whatever we wanted. After the first day, Todd was like, yo, no chance I'm wearing long sleeves for game 2 of this series. He went short sleeves, and like one booth down, Sean McDonough, Tim Kirkjian, Jess Mendoza, Coley Harvey was down on the field reporting. Like they're just sweltering inside the Trop in early October in suits, and we were just chilling, wearing whatever we wanted on radio, and definitely not wearing makeup.
Yep,
Yo,
there you go.
Sean McDonough, he's a character, bro. He's a witty little son of a gun, bro. He's got some. I didn't know he's a funny.
Oh
ass
hell
dude,
yeah,
man. Oh
he's got
my
personality.
God.
And Todd,
Oh.
he calls some Red Sox for radio. And remember, he was the one, or at least I think the first one, that was like calling out the Rays attendance situation.
Yeah. That's
you
where
can't
I'm like,
fake
oh,
that.
we were like, oh shit. We saw him after the game. We're at the bar and we're like, bro, you got some cojones. I love every second about that guy.
Yeah, and we had been in the meeting with Kevin Cash. We were in there like TV and radio together for the meetings that AJ is talking about. And the topic of attendance had come up, and Kevin Cash had very deftly sidestepped an answer to that one, as he's trained to do. And still, it was a notable quote that came up during those telecasts.
It was well played. Well, Mike, we appreciate the extended time, man. Hadn't had you on before, so it was great chit-chatting. As you can see, we just kind of go wherever the hell we want to go, but give people a little peek behind the curtain of the baseball broadcasting world, right?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of your guys' show, in all seriousness, and of all three of you from afar. Todd, I know, but just fans of Scott, you and AJ as well. So thanks for the invite. Sorry I'm in my car. Hopefully the quality was all right. But yeah, a
Great.
pleasure, guys. I'll be watching.
Thank you,
Hey,
Mike. Appreciate
Thanks,
that. Right
Mike.
back
We could have got to know each other so well, but nope.
You're
Uh,
better
known
off.
each other so
You're better
well,
off.
but
I
nope.
know.
You're better off.
AJ, you got to watch more
All
Red
right,
Sox
boys.
games. Thanks,
Later.
Mike. Appreciate you, man. Mike Monaco.
I'll tell you what,
baseball
next time I go to
broadcaster.
Boston, though, Mike's taking me to dinner.
Hey now. Hey, that guy right there, bro. He is solid as they come. He's the next up and coming, like real dude to start doing some big time games here soon.
And he's got
in
the
my
big
in my
3-0
opinion.
too, because
Yeah.
a lot of the baseball execs they're pretty old, so I feel like they don't respect you sometimes until you hit the big 3-0. It's almost like an initiation thing, So now they're like, all right,
3-0.
now he's 30. Now he
The
can
big
handle it.
3-0.
The
I'm
big
turning
3-0.
it- oh,
Gosh, man. I remember back when the big 3-0.
I'm turning 38 in 11 days, man. It seems like I'm going to be 40. I hate it.
All right, let's do a little money moves for a sec. Apparently, teams have been asking about Alek Manoah. There's been some pictures and I think some video too. He's working hard, trying to get back in shape, whatever that means. Morosi said teams have asked about his availability via trade. Sources say Jays are telling clubs they have no plans to move him. He said he was told Manoah has had a very good offseason of workouts, expected to be in the Jays rotation. AJ, for me, I think seeing how Alec looks on the mound is important. Obviously, he's got to perform, but it's also just interesting to watch the relationship with him and the Blue Jays, because I think that there was some fracturing at some point last year. You get demoted a couple times, you think about what you did the year before, and then I think he had like a minor injury and they kind of shut it down. But he's the kind of guy that's a bulldog on the mound. So if his team is not doing what he thinks they should be doing, he's going to be pissed off. So I'm just curious to see like how that plays out over the next few years if he stays with them and bounces back.
How come everybody's in the best shape of their life right now? It's always every year,
Feb
Todd.
ball.
You know,
I was going to say the same thing. Dude.
everybody, man.
Oh,
Man, he's in the best shape of his life. He's ready for a rebound year because he's very good offseason workouts. I'm sure they said the same thing about him last year. We just need to see it. Listen, if Alek Manoah's healthy and right like he was a couple years ago, he can absolutely be a stud and help this team. But I want to see it. Listen, all of us are rooting for Alek Manoah. Nobody wants to see a guy struggle and go from the top to where he went last year, getting sent down and disappearing and doing the whole deal. But he's got to prove it right now. And listen, going into spring training and saying you're in the best shape, okay, great. Go out, in the middle of May and be able to give you 7 innings and not walk the house and do things like that are great. But I think, listen, Alek Manoah can 100% help, and he needs to help the Blue Jays if they have a chance in the East.
Well, let's bring in our next guest on FT Live, Lance Lynn, joining us, coming in hot, and we can ask him about this too. So, Lance, I'm sure obviously you're paying attention to the rest of the league, and the beard looks fantastic, by the way. I'm sure AJ will comment on that as well. But we were just talking about Manoah. He was one of the best starters in baseball 2 years ago, and then just kind of fell apart last year on the mound. So what advice would you have for him? And would you buy stock in someone like that based off the track record? And I don't know, he's probably like 25.
Yeah, I actually know him a little bit. Got to talk to him a little bit. Him and I are in the same boat. You have a good year, and then all of a sudden you feel like nothing works, and everything that worked the year before just seems to go away. But I just know him as a competitor, know him as the person and stuff like that. Just through passing and getting to know him a little bit, through some phone calls and stuff like that. And the dude wants to win, man. And when you're young and all that, you kind of go through times when you think you have things figured out, and then you get the old kick in the dick and don't have a good year, and then you got to reassess. So hopefully, and I know him well enough to know that he doesn't want to be bad, and he's going to do everything he can to make sure he corrects that.
Yeah, that's got to be tough, understanding what you went through the year before, the struggles, and then when you do struggle, or if you do struggle the next year, it's got to go right back in your mind. So is that something that can play tricks in your mind? Is it something like in the offseason, don't worry about it? It's easier said than done, like you said, but there's got to be something in your mind where it says, all right, I got to go back to that feel-good vibe that I've always had and what I've always pitched for, that confidence. I mean, you can always talk about it, but you got to be about it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you know how it is. Every time you go back into an off season, you reassess the year before. You saw what you did good, you saw what you did bad, and then you try to make sure you keep that foundation, and then you try to build off of it. I think sometimes you see guys get themselves in trouble trying to chase certain things or certain trends, and then while doing that, you lose what got you there, what made you good. And I don't know what he was trying to accomplish. I know what got myself in trouble last year, and it's trying to chase certain pitches or certain pitch shapes or breaks and stuff like that aren't natural with the way that your throw goes or stuff like that. So for me personally, it was just getting back to my base of what made me good and what I was able to do for the first 12 years of my career and have success. But also by failing, you're able to use those things you failed at and then figure out how to incorporate those in your games to be complementary pieces instead of a focal piece.
Lance, speaking of focal pieces, you don't have social media, but your wife definitely does. Are you an Instagram husband? Because I've seen people, that go around and their wife is taking pictures and they're holding up the light ring in front of the camera so the lighting is perfect. And you're not in a lot of these pictures. So I'm assuming you're the guy behind the camera and you're like, okay, Diamond, like pose properly. Nope, the lighting's off. Hold on. I totally can see you doing all this.
See, and the fact that you even said that, you're lying through your teeth. And when you assume things, AJ, you make an ass out of you and me. And I will tell you this, I've never held up a light ring or anything like that. Every once in a while, I'll hold a camera up and snap a picture, but she's pretty good at of knocking those things out on her own. She's got it down.
Okay, so are we going full Grizzly Adams beard? Are they going to allow you that on the Cardinals, or are we going to have to trim it up a little bit before we get to Jupiter?
There's nothing in my contract that says I have to trim anything. So I'm looking forward to being myself.
Maybe a home run or two?
Maybe a home run or two, or trim it up.
Yeah.
No, this is who I am. You either love me or hate me. You know that.
Fair enough. I like it.
So you just got back from Turks and Caicos, man. I'm honestly this last week we were looking for our next trip to take the family to Turks and Caicos. Tell me a little bit about it so I know if it's a good idea to go there. I feel like you guys did have a good time, right?
Yeah, so we had a blast. So we didn't take the kids. So if you're taking the kids, I would say it's a good spot too. We saw a lot of families down there with kids. They had we stayed at the Grace Bay Resort. They had an area for kids to play, stuff like that. Beach was great. Food, pool, everything right there. And they got a bunch of different resorts down there where you can do. You got all the places you want to eat and stuff like that. So we enjoyed it. Easy flight from Miami. Getting down there, great weather. So, it's our first time to that island, and we would definitely go back. So if you're going down there, I would recommend Grace Bay, and they got a grown up side and they got the kids side. So you don't have to, if you don't bring your kids, you can go to the adult pool. So you'd be good to go.
Nice. Thank you.
All right, Lance.
Oh, anytime.
all your trip
travel
recommendations.
agent Lance.
Yeah,
now
exactly. These guys all take too many vacations. Anyway, Lance, what? AJ, you've been all around the world already. We're like running out of cities for you.
I used to be, but not anymore.
Oh yeah, this job holding you back.
Him and Adam Jones, man, those guys go everywhere. I'm trying to catch up to them.
I cannot keep up with Adam Jones. Question for you, Lance, another former teammate who did unfortunately have to shave off the facial hair. How do you think Carlos Rodon can bounce back this year? Because I will say this, he's had, injuries in his past, really going back to college, but then you've seen him come back and be one of the better pitchers in baseball. Then he goes through adversity. So can you see that happening again for him? Because obviously last year was a mess for him, and he would be the first person to say that.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, he would be the first person to say that. Knowing Carlos and knowing when Carlos is in a good headspace and knows what he, feels good and doing his thing, my man is one of the best competitors that you can have. When you get to, and we all know that, New York's a different beast. I think that you see a lot of guys kind of take that next step year two when you get there. He had a bad start. And he was hurt to start the year, trying to come back, trying to do this and that. It was just things snowballed on me. And I think when things snowball on you and you just signed a $160 million deal and all that, you feel the pressure. But he wants to be great. He's put every effort that he can in to rebound from that. How he's healthy right now, and I know what kind of person he wants to be, and he wants to win games. He's not out there to lose games and not pitch well. So I think he's gonna right that ship. Just knowing who he is and what kind of mentality he has. My man's a bulldog on the mound, and if he's right, he's one of the best lefties in the game for sure.
Being that you're one of the vets in the league and you've got a lot of dirt in your spikes, do you hit someone like that up at any point during the season, or at least in the off season, even with just like the motivational text? And when that does happen, do you get a response, like a positive, "Hey, appreciate it, man, I'm hustling"?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you're teammates with guys and you have those relationships, you're able to reach out and be like, man, or when you play with them, you always catch up in the outfield during BP and stuff like that. So, yeah, you usually get a good response and something like that. You just want to tell them, hey, everything's good, man. Go through ups and downs in this game. Just figure out how to get out of your rut and keep going, and that's all you can do.
I'm going to bring something back from earlier in the show. So we were talking about a splitter and why more American pitchers don't use it. Todd Father was bringing it up when we were talking about Yamamoto because he's about to enter the show, obviously. Have you ever thought of using a splitter in your arsenal? I know you were Mr. 8 versions of fastball for a long time, but then you started to kind of add a little bit more to the repertoire. What about a splitter?
Yeah, I think it's something that every pitcher in their mind thinks that they can do, and then you start throwing it and this and that, and it's a power field pitch because you got to be able to get it off the seam and something like that. And I think those guys over there, I remember playing with Tanaka in New York, and he threw it the way he threw it and stuff like that. I was always asking him how he did it, and I was like, man, I'm going to try to do this. and then it just does not go the direction that they're able to make it go. I don't know how they do it, but it seems like every Japanese guy comes over with a really good splitter. So it's got to be something that they're able to, manipulate or feel as they're growing up, and able to do that when they come over. It's just like most every Dominican guy comes over with a great slider, right?
A lot of them.
Right.
A lot of them do. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It's just
You
like
changed though.
some.
You're a finesse guy now, so I mean, you should learn a split.
Yeah.
It fit your personality. You should actually learn a knuckleball as many off speeds as you throw at this point in your career.
I agree. I think you know what? I think I'll go down today and start firing splits in the bullpen tonight, and we'll see
What
where
about
it takes me this year.
knuckleball?
Knuckleball's for when you're 40 and older, right?
Aren't you? What are you? 39?
No, close.
When are you coming to God's country?
I'm heading down there into next week, getting everything ready for I think official reports the 13th. So we'll be down there just before the Super Bowl. We're going to come down to Florida to watch the Super Bowl in Vegas.
Okay. Are you? Did you rent a big house for me?
No, I didn't. I made sure that I have just enough rooms for all of my kids and not you.
Damn you! I need a place to stay down there, especially in Jupiter, man. All right. So then the next question is: Are you going to be allowed out one night, either to A, play golf with me, and then B, maybe go? I sent you a picture the other day of Pete Pierzynski, our old strength coach with the Cardinals, who still lives down there. We went and hung out at a place called Square Group. Are you going to be able to get out of the house for maybe a cocktail?
I don't know, man. I got 3 kids and a foreign house, so that's going to be tough to do. I'm sure golf will be able to be done, most likely, especially if I'm able to get out of the field early to get it done.
Okay, all right. That's 50%. That's not bad.
Yeah, fair compromise. Hey, Lance, some people in the chat want to know if you've thought about life after baseball. Like, is there anything you want to do? Or obviously you've made plenty of money and you can just hang out and do the dad stuff. But have you thought about like any type of kind of side job, whether it's working in the game, broadcasting? You'd probably have an open invite from the FT fam, which, Wainwright's getting into broadcasting and might be part of the best broadcasts little booth that we've ever seen with Pierzynski and Adam Mean. So I'm sure you're hoping for a Fox game of the week here and there. But what do you got on your mind?
Yeah, it's actually funny to see AJ and Adam do their games together, just from their time as teammates. But when you have 2 different personalities,
we're very similar people.
Yeah, very similar people. So that's why it clicks so well. No, but you know how it is. It's just like having a clubhouse. You can't have too many of the same people. So that's why it works. No, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. For me, number one thing is you like to stay involved in the game, but you also don't want to make sure you're putting in the time and effort or that you were when you were playing, because it puts in a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of travel. So for me, family first, and then whatever fits in with the ability to go on from there, whether it's helping out, coaching, or helping out, whether it's helping guys just figure out things throughout their career and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different ways you can go, a lot of different ways you can help. But I think it's number one is helping the next generational player and figuring out to make sure that they have everything they need to succeed if you can help them in any way.
Lance, have you seen Yamamoto's javelin that he's going to throw that he practices with?
No, I've not. Is that on the social media?
Well, yeah. So they're going to start selling them in the U.S. And I was wondering, if they sell them, will you try one?
No. Even if I was given one, I wouldn't try it.
Why not?
I'm definitely not paying for it.
Okay, so if we were able to arrange one for you to be given one for free, would you at least try it? See, 60% of America says yes.
We turning into track and field?
No, that's what. Hey, he throws 100 and he throws a nasty split. Maybe that's how you learn your split. You throw the javelin and it teaches you the split.
I mean, everybody threw 100 when they were 25.
It looks like a tranquilizer dart, doesn't it?
It'd be interesting. I think we start off with him in LA. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Is that your opening series? Is it Cardinals?
Yeah, we get it. Cardinals in LA. That's opening. We get the first Sunday night game. I'm sure we'll have that Saturday Fox too, right?
Nope. No, you do not. Actually, no.
Oh man. They didn't even give you the biggest game of the year.
I think that first Saturday is Yankees, Astros, and Giants, Padres.
That's a good one too. That's a good one too.
But I know you guys have Sunday night baseball. Could that be a Lance Lynn homecoming back to LA on Sunday night baseball?
Well, I'll have to ask the manager if he's okay with me starting Game 4.
Oh, is it game? Oh, you guys play 4 before that. I thought that would be Game 3.
We got the old 4-game starter out of the gate in LA, coming from the East Coast. I appreciate it, MLB.
So it'll go great. It'll go sunny. Are you going to be 2? You think?
I don't know.
Sunny?
I mean, I think we're all fighting for a job in spring training, right? That's what they say every year when you go.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, I'm just here to try to make the team. Anything I can do to help. So, whenever they want to slot me in, I'll be ready to chuck it.
Okay, I'm calling Ollie right now. Actually,
you want Sunday night?
I'll call Yachty and make sure that you pitch the 4th game.
Oh, here we go. You're already trying to stir that pot. I see you working.
Yeah, the man with the plan behind the scenes.
Hey, what would you prefer, pitching in day or night games?
Ooh,
doesn't matter.
So it changes throughout the year. To be honest with you, when you get out of spring training, you're like, give me all the day games you got. I'm already on that schedule type thing. And then as you get into like the bulk of the season and start mixing in, I'll tell you when you don't want a day game. You do not want a day game in June, July, and August anywhere in the Midwest. So that's when it gets a little steamy and a little hot. So for me, it depends on the weather. Early on in the year, I love day games, a little cooler. Let's do it. Later on in the year, let's do night games.
Why do they do that in spring training? And should they have more night games, or you guys like the schedule there?
I think that you're starting to actually see more night games. I did in AZ last year. I felt like I saw more night games than ever. I like it in the grand scheme of things. Once you get closer to the season, obviously you need to mix in some day games and all that. But I mean, if you're looking at night games, you go play night. You show up a little later in the day and do your thing. That works out well in spring training. The worst is when you get you've been there a month long going in at 8 o'clock, and then you have a couple of night games. It gets you in a weird spot. So I think there's definitely should be some more night games throughout spring training. Especially, I mean, to be honest with you, you see the hitters in the first couple of night games, first week 2 of the year. It just doesn't feel right to them. So for their sake, I'm always looking out for the hitters. For their sake, they could probably use some more night games during spring training and get them up to game speed.
I always said the last week should be, if it's Monday through Friday all night and then Saturday day, make it like how they're going to do it in the regular season, at least the last week, so you can get your sleep schedule right.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, because you get during the season, you start waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you got a 7 o'clock night game, just kind of beats you up. So I agree with as the spring training goes on, those night games need to be incorporated a little bit more.
Yep.
Why do you go all spring training? Play all day games, especially if you're in Arizona and then you go east, right? Or west, either way. You're in Florida, you go west. You play all these games at 1 o'clock, and then the first week you're like, 7 o'clock, guys. And your body's like, wait a minute, what the hell is going on? Wait, I'm used to being up at 6 a.m. and at the park by 7. And now all of a sudden I can sleep in. It's just a weird dynamic. And I agree, man. I wish they would do more night games, but they do it for the fans. And plus, people like day baseball.
Yeah. And that's why you can mix them in, You can mix them in down there in spring training. Half the people that come to spring training games are there on vacation, so they're going to come at nighttime anyways. They can come, go in Florida, they can go to the beach during the day and then come to the game at night. So I don't think they'll really care.
Hey, Lance, got a question for you about your former ball club. So Chris Getz takes over the White Sox, and they've had an interesting offseason. Of course, Dylan sees his name popping up in trade rumors. They've even addressed it publicly, just haven't gotten the offer that they've wanted. What do you think of their approach so far this offseason? They've taken a ton of former Royals players. It's pretty clear that they're looking to do like a, quote, culture change, trying to bring in like a different brand of baseball player, but not just on the field. So I don't know how much you've seen from the moves that they've made, but there's been a major roster turnover. I don't know if it's necessarily a more talented team, but I think they're figuring that, they need to switch things up even from the group that they've got from what they traded last year.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see, obviously, when you underperform, you're going to see some turnover. I think that they're trying to put in a different system and a way to do things that, haven't been there in the past. I don't really, know what the plan is. Obviously, I still have some friends in that clubhouse, and some of the guys that they have left over from last year's squad are capable and willing to, take the next step to be what they need. They just need the right backing to be able to do that. So hopefully, bringing in some guys that, you can get a little different flavor of how to do things, and some guys can start following, and then also, learning to lead in their own way where, as we all know, there's teams that have multiple different leaders, and you got to find different ways for different guys to lead and bring guys along. And it's not always the guys that are making all the money or have the long-term contracts. Those quote unquote grinder guys that do everything that they need to do and all that are also guys that they bring a lot of weight in the clubhouse.
Yep, makes sense, dude. Well, good catching up with you, man. We're a little over time, but next time we'll see you is in, as AJ calls it, God's country in Jupiter, Florida.
Well, I'll be on East Coast time that time, so I won't mess it all up.
He gets confused with time zones. He really gets confused with time zones.
I said any time after 1, and then next thing I know, I'm getting a call at 12:15. Where you at? And I'm like, dude, I said any time after 1. So maybe that it was
1:15 here.
Yeah, 1:15, because the way that you work is the only thing that matters is what time zone you're in and where you're at. That's all that matters. So I see how you are.
I will say that's not a fair fight. Lance Lynn against Mark behind the scenes. There's a bit of a mismatch.
It wasn't his fault.
It wasn't.
It was not Mark's fault. It was when I said 1:15 works, totally thinking it was my time, and then never saw Eastern Standard Time. So that's on me.
That's fair. That's fair.
Nothing,
I like that.
nothing a little Gloria can't handle, though. That's all.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
Too busy taking Instagram photos. We get it.
No, when you were texting me, give me a hard time for being late. I'm sitting in the middle of drop-off line for pre-K in the afternoon. I'm like, I got
true.
No shot.
True.
I got no shot. See if I can do it later.
Appreciate you, Lance. We'll see you in Jupiter in a few weeks, dude.
See you, brother.
All right, sounds good, guys. See you later.
Cheers. See you later. Lance Lynn, St. Louis Cardinals. Yeah, I think that'll be an AJ trip maybe. So you can get a little golf in and then hang out at Cardinals camp. Say hi to Ollie.
Absolutely. Ollie, Descalso.
Yeah, that's all you, dude. Jupiter's here this year.
Yeah, who else is there? The Marlins aren't really. Marlins, John Jay, Skip Schumacher. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that is a very you trip. Maybe both of us. We'll see. But
Palm Beach, we can mix in Palm Beach. We can go down there and hang out with some guys down there.
We're going to be hitting some camps heavy this year, so look out for it once people are there. But let's slap hands. You were with us at the beginning of the show. Main feature of Slap Hands today is who was that teammate for Todd Frazier, and the chat was buzzing all day long, and I think we finally figured it out. He said Thompson, and this name actually was brought up because someone brought it up in the chat.
Yes,
and
DT.
AJ
I
said
screwed up.
Daryl Thompson.
Yes, loved his Mickey D's, baby.
Right? Was it 2011?
I lied. Yeah, I forget, but he did. Whenever he throws McDonald's for a game, he would do really well. That's just his MO.
Well, it says his last game he was 25 years old, 2011. So maybe they switched the menu around, and he was just like, "Dude, I'm not the same since they took."
Well, he was with the Twins then, so I don't know. We'll see.
Well,
he was a good dude. He was solid ball player. Solid.
I like that. We might have to bring him on at some point. A little former player conversation. Daryl.
See if he still crushes the McDonald's.
Hell yeah. I like that. Whatever it takes. You got something?
Yeah, I just before we go, Mike Martin, who many people, unless you followed college baseball pretty well, was coached at Florida State for like 40 years. He passed away today, so condolences to him and his family. Being a Florida fan, much respect for 11, as everyone called him. He recruited me in high school, got to know him a little bit as he got older. Played against his son, Meat, who was his son, Mike Martin Jr., who became the coach after him. A lot of good friends played for him, had nothing but great things to say to him. So Mike Martin, 11, as everyone, again, calls you. You'll be missed, and rest in peace.
R.I.P., yeah, absolute legend in college baseball for such a long time, devoted his whole life to the game and to obviously not just wins on the field, but, there's a lot of growing and maturing that's needed from many college baseball players. So that comes with the job, too. It's a tough job, and the recruiting, and you barely have any scholarships to give out. So, rest in peace and thoughts with the Martin family and his family and friends. All right, on our way out here, we'll do the usual. The only promise I'll make, unless someone tells me otherwise, is Kenny Ballgame back with us, Ken Rosenthal, on Friday. So looking forward to that. And then hopefully I'm back in studio with AJ on Monday if I'm released from my quarantine. We'll see. No?
Jersey, here you come.
Jersey, Todd Father.
Come on here, bro. It's cold here. It'll be gone in 5 seconds once you hit the air.
I'll be freezing my ass off that you won't think about the illness, but it's all good. I'm on the recovery trail. So we'll see all you peeps on Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern time.
Cheers.